Hello, how is everyone doing? Long time no see. I reluctantly escaped my captor. She went back to Texas. Darn it. We had fun. It was a very fun, busy 10 days. I'm not muted. There's nothing muted. Flash man. I'm not. We spent a lot of time outside. You should see Carmen. She is super dark. Super, super dark. What's up, Bri? Good to see you. And hello, Gabby. Flashman, I'm great. Just trying to find my bearings. No, I don't believe so. That is down by Ada. That's an Ada case. She lives in that area. That's affected, I believe. She is so tan. It's crazy. I'm like, who are you? She spent every day in the pool, even when nobody else was there. Because some days it was a little too hot for Mad Dog, so I kept her inside with me on the days that she was here and take her out for just a little bit, let her swim in the pool with Carmen. She fell asleep one day in her little life jacket, and Carmen and I were just out in the pool, and Madison's just floating around. I'm like, that has to be the most peaceful sleep ever. And she probably feels like she's back in the womb. She's gonna wake up all confused. But I don't know. She's learning to like the pool. She's fine in the pool. She's fine if you hold her. She hates the floaty thing I bought her because she won't put her legs down. She just holds them up, so it makes her fall forward. It's funny, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Hey, Annabelle. How are you? Good to see you. Her first birthday went off without much of a hitch. She doesn't like things on her hands, so I didn't figure she'd probably be super into her smash cake. But no worries, because I accidentally smashed it for her. I was trying to help my son get her out of the high chair, and I didn't realize that thing, it was like, I don't know how many layers. 1,000, a gazillion, I don't know. But I went to pull the tray out on the high chair, not all the way, but that thing weighed so much that it tipped. And when it tipped, I just stuck my my leg out. I had shorts on, and it just all tipped right over onto the top of my leg. It was great. It was great. But Madison didn't care. She was not about it. And it was hot, so she was over it. But I was like, no, I smashed the cake. But I caught it. It did not touch the ground. Half of it didn't even touch me. So they could eat it if they wanted to. I have no idea what they did with it. That cake was so heavy. Like, what's in this thing? Cake smashing the horror. Sounds like the movie. The rest of us had cupcakes, so they were very good. But anyway, now she's one officially. And that's pretty much all I have to report of my week in captivity with being held, can't say against my will, with Carmen. We had a good time. So everybody, she's back in Texas, safe and sound. My son went back to work today after his surgery. I'm like, everybody left all at once, and I'm just here. And I was going to lay in the pool today all by myself, and it was cloudy and rainy. I'm saying, seriously. We did fireworks. We go to my brother's. He's just a few driveways down. So we have dinner and everything there so that his grandkids, because he has a gazillion of them, can swim in their pool and do whatever they do in their pool. And then we come down to my house because we have more open area to shoot off fireworks. So nothing big, nothing major. But I told my husband, I'm like, we have an ool. They have a pool because ours does not have any pee in it. I know, TMI. But anyway, back to our trial at hand. We probably all needed a break from Betty anyway. I don't know. She's a lot. But we are going to continue on with her cross-examination by the state prosecutor, who she does not like, and I don't think that lady likes her either. No love is lost. No, our pool is just regular old water. Just boring old chlorine water. My dogs don't like fireworks either. Our neighbor's dog ended up in our yard, and that dog is nuts. It ran around like Carmen and my husband and my nephews were all down lighting stuff off quite a ways down from the rest of us in case something went bad so we could get the little ones out of the way. And that dog literally lapped them the whole time and sometimes even tried to catch a firework in its mouth. I'm like, not the brightest dog in the world, but whatever floats your boat. All right, so a new little summary background. When I opened up, just FYI, when I opened up StreamYard today, they've done a big update apparently, but it's not working for everyone. I'm like, it wasn't working before. So we shall see what happens. Hopefully, I'm not included in the people that it's not working for. Hey, Daddy Shortnuts. How you doing? Good to see you. Well, Flashman, trust me, it could be worse. I would take the barking and hiding over some of the other things I've seen. All right, so we're back. Betty is on the stand. When we watched last, there wasn't very much testimony, and then the state, they went into this big argument about, I don't even know what. We didn't even watch it. So I don't know what the argument was. I haven't looked at Betty since then. I just looked today. We've got about 2 hours to go today. Then we'll see what happens. So got it boosted, got it slightly sped up, not a ton. Hopefully I remember how to work this thing. All right, here we go.
Rick is present. You're still under oath from last week, ma'am. You may proceed, Ms. Wells.
Thank you, Your Honor. When we had finished up last week, I had asked you to identify a letter that was sent to you by Mr. Broderick in which he explained to you after the court-ordered support how to take care of your health insurance and your auto insurance and your life insurance, and you didn't want to identify that letter without seeing the first page. Your Honor, may I have marked as People's Exhibit 74, a letter dated December 31st, 1986, to Elizabeth Ann Broderick.
So marked. Absolutely, Your Honor. Certainly.
If you could take a look at this complete letter and tell us, is that the letter that you received from Mr. Broderick describing for you how to take care of those things?
I don't remember receiving this. I just don't remember receiving it.
Attached to the letter are some checks that he sent to you as part of your support. Is that not correct?
That's what it looks like.
Okay. And on the back side of those checks is your signature endorsing the checks when you deposited them into your account. Is that not correct?
Right. I would have gotten the checks and I probably got the letter, but I may have gotten it through Bill Hargreaves.
But you
In
did
which
get the
case I
letter.
wouldn't have read it.
You would have just accepted the checks, but you wouldn't have read the letter.
Right.
Okay. But you did get a letter anyway in which Mr. Broderick explained to you how to take care of your health insurance, how to take care of your homeowner's insurance,
Your Honor,
how to take
objection.
care of your auto
No
insurance.
facts, not evidence. It's been asked.
Sustained on this and answered.
Did it not, you also indicated, you testified that you were never explained that your support was taxable to you, correct? The figure that you were going to have to pay taxes on that.
I still don't know if that's true.
Does it not explain in this letter?
Your Honor, I have an objection. There's been testimony, it's been asked and answered about the letter.
Well,
I believe I can,
She can see if she can refresh her recollection to see that she remembers that part of the letter. She's testified that she thinks she got the letter, might have got it from Hargreaves. She doesn't remember reading it.
Yes, Your Honor, so all those questions is irrelevant as to reading the letter and then asking her if this is true.
Overall, she's asking if that's in the letter, if that will refresh her recollection. Take a look at it and let her know. So,
What's the question?
does it refresh your recollection to look at the last paragraph on that page, page 2, and the first paragraph on page 3, wherein it was explained to you that your support payments were taxable to you, and that you should contact an accountant if you had any
Your
questions
Honor,
about that?
I have an objection. This is improper.
it's just saying, just have her read it to herself and see if she refreshes her recollection.
I don't remember getting this letter, so I don't remember that paragraph.
Obviously, it is fair to say, Mrs. Broderick, that if you received the support payment inside the letter and you deposited that payment, that you received the letter. Is that not true?
I don't know if that's true. I could have gotten it through Mr. Hargreaves at that time. See the date?
How, well, explain to me how you're saying you got the letter through Mr. Hargreaves. How does that make a difference about whether or not you received it?
I
Your
wouldn't have
Honor,
read it. I
objection
didn't
is
read it.
argumentative. She's already answered. She doesn't remember the letter.
Sustained.
I'm simply asking if you can, I'm not trying to be argumentative, I'm asking if you can explain how you would have gotten this letter with the support included and not have read it.
Your Honor,
That's
objection
easy. I didn't
is
want to read
argumentative
this
and
stuff.
false.
Sustained. She just, well, I don't know if she read it.
Just so that it's clear, what you're saying is you received the letter.
I don't even know if I received it. It might have gone to Bill Hargreaves' office. I may have gone down and picked up the checks from Bill Hargreaves. And if he gave it to me, I didn't read it.
Is it addressed to Elizabeth Ann Broderick at 8320 Calle de Cielo?
Yes, but at this time,
Your Honor, I'm just going to object. It's argumentative.
Overruled, that's proper.
You also indicated that right after the court ordered support in January of 1987, when Tricia Smith took over the case, that Dan Broderick was immediately playing games with you, that he wasn't paying his support, and that he was waiting until the end of the month to pay the support, correct?
that's my recollection the first month. And then we had to rewrite the court order.
Your Honor, may I have marked as People's Exhibit 75, a series of 12 statements written by Dan Broderick, addressed to Elizabeth Broderick,
So marked.
with checks attached to each one. If you would take a look at this first letter dated January the 30th. Is that not a letter that was sent to you by Dan Broderick about your support, including your support check?
That's what it looks like, yes.
And it's dated January 30th.
Right.
And it indicates the amount of support that the balance of the amount of support that he was due to you that month, correct?
Right.
And attached to that is a check totaling that amount.
You mean three or four checks totaling?
Totaling the amount
That he's
of the
supposed to
balance
do,
that
right.
was due to you.
Right.
And you deposited those checks in your account, did you not?
I remember probably.
If you would look at the attached deposit slip where you deposited those checks in your account, can you tell us the date that you deposited those checks in your account?
February 2nd.
So you received this letter, or it was mailed to you on January 30th, and you deposited on February 2nd, 1987,
Right.
correct? If you would take a look at the next letter that's dated March 4th, 1987. Is that not also a statement from Dan Broderick regarding your support that he paid to you on March 4th, 1987?
Yes, but where's the February check? See, something's wrong here.
Excuse me, Mrs. Broderick. The first statement, this represents court-ordered support for the month of February 1987. It was sent January 30th. It was deposited February 2nd. On March 4th, the check was sent to you. There's a deposit slip attached. Can you tell us what the date is of your deposit?
March 6th.
On April 2nd, 1987, a letter sent to you. Is this not a letter sent to you regarding the amount due for the month of April 1987?
Yes,
And attached is the check that you endorsed and the deposit slip. What's the date of the deposit?
April 3rd.
It was sent April 2nd. It was deposited April 3rd, correct?
Right.
On May 1st, did you not receive a letter for the month of May with the support that was due to you that month, a statement of the support that was due?
There was only 1 month where we had this problem.
Well, excuse me, I don't believe that was your testimony, but let me just go through this. When you deposited that amount, what's the date of the deposit?
May 4th. There was only 1 month, and Tricia Smith had to rewrite the court order, and then he complied to the new court order. My complaint was we had to rewrite the court order because there was a loophole that did not say that it was due and payable on the 1st of the month.
Did you not, Mrs. Broderick, testify that he was playing games with you and not paying his support all during 1987, and he was making you wait until the end of the month?
No, that was 1 month in the beginning because of this loophole, and Tricia Smith had to rewrite the court order, and she was very bothered about that.
Well, let's just go through the rest of these. Just so that we
It's a waste of time.
It's irrelevant.
Overruled. Go ahead.
On June 2nd, did he not send you?
Your Honor, I'm being distracted verbally. There was an order about cameras without.
Yeah, could you pull down the noise? Go ahead.
I thought he was going to complain about squeaky chairs. I'm distracted. I can't hear the squeaky chairs. Not a camera that we can't even hear. Oh man. Sorry. I'm trying to watch you guys. I'm trying to listen to this because she did complain about not being paid. She's been paid. So I want to see where it comes in that she wasn't paid. But you guys are on a roll tonight, and it's quite funny. We get Church Lady back, I believe, later on. Because I just kind of slid through to make sure we weren't just going to go to argument like last time, and I didn't look. TJ Flashy.
Is there not a statement for the month of June 1987, including a check for the support that he owed you?
Right.
And when did you deposit that check?
June 4th.
It was sent on June 2nd, and you deposited it June 4th. Is that correct?
It says.
Statement for July 2nd, including an accounting and the checks that were due to you for support, were deposited on July 8th by you. Is that correct?
Right.
Statement sent to you on July 31st for the month of August of 1987 with a check written by Dan Broderick and deposited by you on what day?
Could you reread my testimony because I testified to this correctly, and you're trying to say that I was lying, and I wasn't lying.
You can't ask her questions, Mr. Roderick.
Okay, what's the question?
My only question of you is when was that August
August 4th.
support check deposited by you in your account?
August 4th.
Statement dated September 4th for the month of September with the check included. When was that deposited by you?
September 8th.
Statement dated October 2nd, 1987 with the check, the balance for you. When was that deposited?
October 5th.
Statement dated November 2nd, 1987 with the check included. When was that deposited for you?
11/4.
statement dated December 2nd, 1987, with a check included. And when was that deposited?
12/7.
Your Honor, I would like the record to reflect that the total amount of payments in these checks, including the payment on her mortgage on the Calle de Cielo house, was $190,000, $926.
Your Honor, I'm going to object until we start bringing in the
Well,
income of.
excuse me, it's best evidence the documents speak for themselves.
Was that for a year? $190,000. Oh, wow. See you, Bri. If you're working, hope you have an easy night. If you're not working, still hope you have an easy night. $190,000. That's crazy. Yeah, Betty. Wow. We all objected that. I'm kind of surprised that she didn't have more clothes in jail, but I don't know where they were. And plus, I only know when it's a different day when the prosecutor changes her dress. That makes sense. I don't know if you could last on $190,000 a year, Gabby. Be rough. Be rough.
Is it not true, Mrs. Broderick, that in the year of 1987, after the court ordered support of $16,000, that Dan Broderick paid every cent that he was ordered by the court to pay, and he paid it in the first week of every month of that year?
It's not my recollection in the beginning. In that first month, he played with us somehow, and I had to have the court order redone because of this little loophole. That's my recollection. But he was court ordered to pay that money, so he had no choice. But he filed an appeal because he didn't want to pay it.
Is it not true, Mrs. Broderick, that he paid every cent that he was ordered to pay by the court, and he paid it in the first week, and you deposited it in the first week of every month?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe it's December of.
Are you challenging these deposit slips?
I have the diaries. If I can consult the diary, I'll tell you what happened there because that's where I remember it. It's in the diaries. And it's from Tricia Smith. I remember that she had to rewrite a court order that it was due and payable on the first of the month.
I'm going to offer those in evidence, Your Honor, at this point.
What do you want to offer them at this point?
I just want to offer them in evidence.
Any objection?
Your Honor, in front of the jury, we're going to play games. I also at this point want to offer,
Your Honor, this is ridiculous.
Just a minute.
and I want to offer these,
Mr.
Your Honor.
Early,
Let's set them marked,
just a
and let's
minute,
play
Mr.
these games now.
Mr.
Let's
Early,
get the diaries marked so the jury can hear the whole truth.
Mr. Early, knock it off. Just calm down for a minute. You object to People 74.
At this point in time, Your Honor, until everything can be heard, I object.
All right, objection sustained. That's all I asked you. No speeches. Go ahead.
Well, Your Honor, I would ask that you give the same admonition to the district attorney.
All she did was offer one exhibit, Mr. Early.
We had discussed that would be done at the end of the case, Your Honor, not.
I asked you if you objected. All I wanted to know was your position. You stated it. I've ruled. Go ahead, Ms. Wells.
When you talked last week, Mrs. Broderick, about the instances of physical contact that you had with Miss Broderick, excuse me, the black eye that you described, the skiing, was that something that you were still angry about on November the 5th, 1989?
No.
Was that something that had anything to do with what you did on November the 5th, 1989?
I mean, those specific things, no.
Did they have anything to do with your state of mind that morning? Were you thinking about what he had done to you back during that skiing incident? Did that have anything to do with your state of mind that morning?
Not in particular and specifically, but in general, I thought he was a monster on that morning. So all of those sorts of things contributed to it.
And is that why you killed him on that morning, because you thought he was a monster?
No.
It is true, and you've testified, I believe already, that at the time of the separation in 1985 and 1986, even up through 1987, that you would have willingly and happily stayed married to him if you'd had the opportunity to, correct?
In 86 and 87?
Let's just stay with 1985 when the separation occurred.
Absolutely, yes.
And you have indicated to reporters, for example, that you definitely wanted to have him as your husband, and you wanted to have him as your children's father.
I wanted to keep our family intact, yes.
I asked you about a trip prior to separation, about whether or not you had taken a cruise to the Bahamas. And you indicated it was a cruise to Bermuda that you took, correct?
Several years before separation, yes.
Okay. So there was a cruise to Bermuda in 1981 or 1982,
Yes.
and the trip to Cancun, as well as the 3 trips to Europe.
Right.
Now, it is true in 1985, after the separation, when Dan Broderick moved back into the Coral Reef house, that you did vandalize the Coral Reef house.
Yes.
And there was a series of vandalisms that occurred over there. For example, in June of 1985, you smashed the telephone answering machine, you broke a large mirrored closet door, you smashed a hole in the bedroom wall, you spray painted the walls of the bedroom and the bathroom, the walls of the family room, the curtains in the family room, the brick fireplace with black Rust-Oleum paint, correct?
No, those have never been correct, and those are the things I corrected in the file in 1985 or 6.
Well, you did spray paint the house. You've already admitted that you spray painted the house.
I remember ruining some wallpaper, but as far as those other things, nobody ever did those things. Those things never happened.
But when you say you remember ruining some wallpaper, how was it that you ruined the wallpaper?
With the spray paint.
So
I
you did
hated the
spray-
wallpaper that he put up.
Okay, and so you went to the house and you spray painted the wallpaper.
I ruined the wallpaper, right?
And what words did you write with your spray paint?
No words.
In October, you took the Boston cream pie and you smeared it all over the bedspread, the carpet, the mirror in the bathroom, 10 or 12 sweaters or shirts.
No, see, that's Dan's exaggeration again. I've already described it was a little tiny cake. It couldn't possibly have been, done that much damage. It's no way.
And your testimony is that you just smushed it on his bed,
Yes,
and that no one in the house was upset by your conduct at the time?
I didn't remember that. I heard some babysitter say that Lee was upset, but I've spoken to Lee since, and she said she wasn't upset at all. She thought it was funny.
On October 19th, 1985, you threw 2 bottles of wine through a large window. You shattered a sliding glass door, upended a television set, broke the cover on the stereo, smashed 2 lamps.
I threw the bottles through the window on that Saturday morning when Dan took Rhett away, but that's all I did. The rest of the stuff is lies, always has been.
On November the 3rd, you broke a large picture window with an umbrella.
No,
You didn't break that with the umbrella?
there's no other broken window. There was only the one with the champagne bottle.
Now, you didn't recall breaking the window at the Coral Reef house either when you went over there to burn the carpet until you were shown the photographs, correct?
No, I didn't.
And when you were shown the photographs that you had broken the window, then you remembered that you had broken it.
No,
right?
I don't really remember being there, no.
So you still don't remember the fact that you broke the sliding glass door at Coral Reef when you went over there that day?
No, but I'll believe I did it.
So it is true that there are some things that you've done in the past that were vandalism that you don't recall.
If you're saying those things are things I did that I don't recall, those are not things that anybody did. Those are the personal injury attorney's way of expounding on minor things.
On December 19th, 1985, you entered the Coral Reef house and tore the wrapping paper off of Christmas presents that had been purchased for the children. You shattered a mirror hanging in the hallway. You slammed the front door with such force that it punched a hole in the wall.
Lies.
You've already admitted that you did rip the wrappers off the Christmas presents.
But all that other stuff is just lies.
Okay, so you went in and you ripped the presents off of the,
I don't really
ripped the wrapping off of the Christmas presents, but the rest of it is not true.
remember doing that either. I mean, I don't really remember that, but I know that those big violent things that he's claiming nobody ever did. Those things never happened. There were not holes in walls and doors off hinges and things. Nobody
Do you
did those
remember
things.
ripping the wrappers off the presents?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Do you remember testifying the last time when you testified that you remember doing that?
I could have done that. I mean, that's not
So you could
something
have done a
real
lot of these
violent.
things, but you're not remembering them now.
I could have, but I don't think I did.
It is true that Mr. Broderick asked you on many occasions during that period of time to please stop vandalizing the house, that it was upsetting the children. He did ask you many times to please stop, didn't he?
Well, I don't remember him talking to me. I was mad because he had Linda in the house with the kids.
Do you recall last time testifying that you remember that he asked you verbally many times
No,
to stop, and your
I'm
response
sure he
was?
did. I'm sure he did, but I don't remember him asking. I don't remember him talking to me during that time, which is part of the problem.
Didn't you say last time when you testified, when you were asked, didn't he ask you, please, many times to stop the vandalism? Didn't you say yes, but he wouldn't stop having Linda Kolkena over?
That's probably what I said, right?
So as far as you were concerned, if he had Linda Kolkena over, it was okay for you to do the vandalism.
It was my house, and he was lying about Linda during those times when most of these things happened. He was still lying. In December, he wasn't lying anymore, but I didn't like Linda. I was mad about all the lies and everything.
I think that's a given, and you therefore felt that you could vandalize the house, correct?
Well, it didn't follow like that.
Didn't he, then when you wouldn't stop after he'd asked you verbally, didn't he write you a letter and ask you please to stop the vandalism because of what it was doing to the children?
I don't know, maybe.
May I have marked, Your Honor, as People's Exhibit 75?
76,
A letter dated November the 4th, 1985.
somewhere.
If you could read the last paragraph on the first page to yourself, please, to see if that refreshes your recollection about whether or not he'd asked you on many occasions to stop.
Now, what's the question?
Does that refresh your recollection?
I'm not done with it yet.
Excuse me, Ms. Broderick, I asked you to read the last paragraph to see if that refreshes your recollection about whether or not he had asked you on many occasions to please stop the vandalism because of what it was doing to the children.
It doesn't say that there.
I'm asking you if that refreshes your recollection at all about whether or not he asked you that. It's yes or no.
That doesn't say anything like that. You must be in the wrong paragraph or something.
I certainly don't mind if you come over to pick
Your
up
Honor,
the kids or some of your
That doesn't
possessions.
say anything
Sustained.
about the children.
Stan, just,
Did he not? Does this, I guess you haven't answered my question yet. Does it refresh your recollection at all about whether or not he asked you to stop the vandalism?
It refreshes my recollection about a lot of things, about threats.
Ma'am, can you
About
please?
court
Mrs.
order.
Broderick, just
No.
answer her question, yes or
No.
no. The answer is no, that's fine.
Does he not ask you to please keep the animosity to a minimum? That you're making it very difficult?
Was that in the last paragraph that you asked me? No, it's not, is it? No, it's not. Please say that it's not, right? You're wrong.
I would really like to keep the stress and
Your Honor,
animosity
I'll
to a
Just a
minimum.
minute, just a minute.
She's,
Well, she's asked a legitimate question, Ms. Ball. I don't know if it's in the last paragraph or not. She's saying it's not.
does it say in the last paragraph? I would really like to keep the stress and animosity to a minimum, but you are making that very difficult.
Yes, but it doesn't say anything about the children.
May I have another letter marked, Your Honor, as People's Exhibit 77, dated July 21st, 1986.
So marked.
Why don't you read this one-page letter, Mrs. Broderick, and see if that refreshes your recollection about whether or not he requested that you stop the vandalism or the bad mouthing because of what it was doing to the children.
So what's the question?
Does that refresh your recollection about whether or not he had made requests to you to please stop bad mouthing him, saying, putting the kids in the middle of the divorce?
This is after the bifurcation. He says that. It's kind of pathetic, but yes.
Bad mouthing one another to the kids, or even worse, blaming them for the divorce is destructive. I suggest that each of us encourage the kids to love
Your
and
Honor, I
respect the other.
object. This is proper.
Sustained.
I'm asking her, I want to ask her what she thinks is so pathetic about this, Judge. She just said it was pathetic.
Well,
That
then
he
ask-
sent the
yeah.
children out of town for the summer and he went in and got the forcible sole custody, no visitation, and a final divorce without any attempt on his part at all to settle any issues. And then he sends me a letter like I should be careful about what's happening to the children.
When he sent the children, bring back up, when he sent the children to camp, of course, going to camp was something that they did every summer,
They
right?
weren't at camp on July 16th, 86. They were in Ohio at his parents'.
They'd gone to visit his parents and then they went to camp. And that wasn't anything that was particularly unusual. They went to camp every summer, didn't they?
Not particularly every summer,
Well,
no.
they'd gone to camp for several summers in a
Some of
row.
them had, yes, some of them
Okay.
had.
And at this time, you had been doing vandalism, you had been using the bad words. There was a recommendation by the psychologist that maybe it would be helpful for these kids to get them out of town for a while because of all of the animosity that you were expressing. Isn't that true?
I wouldn't know that.
I'm gonna object as soon as that's not happening.
Sustained.
You didn't have any discussions at all with Mr. Broderick about whether it wouldn't be a good idea to get the kids out of the middle of this for a while.
Mr. Broderick would not discuss anything with me.
Okay?
The children
Excuse
told me things. The children told me that he was sending them out of town because he was going into court that was going to do something that was going to enrage your mother. So he wanted to hide them, and they
Okay,
didn't want to go.
We'll talk about the bifurcation in a minute. When you would not stop the vandalism or stop using the bad words, which you admitted you didn't stop, he did attempt to, well, first to serve you with a restraining order and then ultimately to serve you with an order of contempt, correct?
What year are you in, please?
1986. In January of 1986, did he not attempt to serve you with some process regarding a contempt hearing, and you called him up and told him that he better get the process server out of there or you were going to kill him, kill the kids, and burn the houses down?
I don't remember saying I was going to kill him and kill the kids. That's again Dan's words and Dan's letter. But I was absolutely hysterical that there were more papers coming to my front door. I had felt barraged, and I
In January of 1986, how many papers had you received?
don't know, but I was hysterical. And I said, "You get the dogs away from my front door. You're crazy. Get these people away from me." I was scared to death.
Well, January of 1986, let's 1985. We'll look at your own exhibits here. First of all, the first part of the year 1985, you hadn't received any papers, right?
There's nothing filed until October.
In September of, in the second half of 1985, you were served with the dissolution papers. You were served with a restraining order. And you were served with an OSC rate contempt. Those are the only things that you were served with. Is that the barrage of papers that you're talking about?
Well, I was also served with all of these threatening letters from Dan Broderick. So to me, they were kind of the same thing.
Okay, well, let's get back to whether or not this is a threatening letter then. Dear Elizabeth Ann, you and I are no longer married. It is now up to us to do our best to minimize the trauma.
I'm gonna object as to the form of the question.
I want to,
Well, she wants to ask her what from there she considered a threat. I assume that's where you're going.
that's correct, Your Honor, it's only 2 paragraphs.
Well, I believe that she has a right to show us to her and ask what's threatening.
Show it to her and ask her. Has she seen that one?
Yes,
Which one are you holding up just for me? People
People
77?
77.
Go ahead.
It is now up to us to do our best to minimize the trauma our divorce will have on our kids and see that they are as happy and secure, see that they have as happy and secure a childhood as possible under the circumstances. Is there a threat in that paragraph to
The
you?
very first sentence just drove me absolutely crazy. You and I are no longer married. That's what he kept saying. We're finally, completely, absolutely, totally divorced. He never wanted to see or hear or speak to me again. And then he goes on to say in his platitudes that we ought to make it easy and nice for the kids now. And I'm going, what are you doing? I mean, it's the bifurcation. It's years into this thing. And I've gotten absolutely no satisfaction out of him in any regard. The children, the phone, the money, anything. And he sends me that typical cold-hearted lawyer letter. We are no longer married. Now let's make sure the kids are having fun.
Well, this was July of 1986. It
After
was
the
true
bifurcation.
that it had been over a year since you'd been separated. And
Well
it was
over a
true that you were no longer married, correct?
Yes, thanks to his handling of the situation. Yes, that is technically true.
Well, it is true. He filed for a divorce.
That's right.
He wanted the divorce,
That's right.
and you were divorced.
That's right.
And what is the threat that's in that first paragraph?
The first-
Sustained.
Bad mouthing one another to the kids, or even worse, blaming them for the divorce is destructive. I suggest that each of us encourage the kids to love and respect the other and that we refrain from any derogatory comments to or about one another. What is the threat that's in there?
That he is making, do you see anything in there that he wants to come to a conclusion about the children or the money or anything with me? No, he is in total control of everything. And that is a letter to me saying that it's now my responsibility to make sure that the children don't hear naughty names from me and that the children are happy about this. And
Okay,
putting all
and
that
you just-
responsibility on me at that point.
Okay.
I would have expected a letter at that point of, we're finally divorced, let's make some sort of a settlement, let's get on with our lives. That's what I wanted in a
And
letter
you
at
don't
that
think
point.
that's what he was saying in this?
I know that's not what he
It
said,
would have
no.
been better for him to say, we are finally divorced, instead of you and I are no longer married? Is there a difference
No,
in that?
that letter doesn't say, let's make an attempt to settle this at all. It doesn't mention that at all. It just says,
Henceforth, I will do anything I can on this score for the kids' sake, and I hope you will do the same. He's talking about the kids, not the divorce, the kids, right?
what does that mean? Henceforth, he will do anything. He wouldn't speak to me. He wouldn't let me see them. He wouldn't let me talk on the phone to him.
Are you
Henceforth,
saying in
I will
July
do
of
anything. He wouldn't
1986?
do anything.
Are you saying in July of 1986 you weren't seeing the kids?
I always saw the kids. He'd have to kill me to keep me away from those kids.
Back to when the Knox Attorney Service tried to serve you with an order. You wouldn't receive the order, you wouldn't open up the door, you did call up Dan Broderick, you threatened him, you told him to get them
the dogs
away, or
off,
that
right.
you'd kill the kids, kill him, burn the houses down, correct?
That's what he says. I said, I know I was scared to death and absolutely hysterical, and I wanted him to call off the dogs.
Well, you have threatened before to kill Dan and the kids.
I've never threatened to kill the kids. I know he says that, but I've never threatened ever to kill the kids.
Do you remember when you were at Claremont Hospital after driving the car through the door? Patient readily admits that she had threatened to kill her husband, children, and self in the past. Did you readily admit that you had done that at Claremont Hospital?
I said I probably, have said things like that, but when particularly asked, I've never threatened the children at all, ever.
Well, when you say I would have probably said that.
Well, I
but when
almost agreed to it
particularly
when you
asked-
just said it. I said a lot of things when I was mad and stuff, not meaning any of them. But
Okay.
I don't
so-
think I ever threatened the children.
And you were mad when the
Thanks, Paddletown. Seems longer. I don't know if that's good or bad. But thank you for being a member for 8 months. I appreciate it. And your autocorrect is very entertaining tonight. I will just say that. I wasn't going to comment on the reporter's eyes. I was leaving them alone. That's all I'll say. That's it. But thank you. I'll say that. She needs sleep. Okay, we'll go with that. You like unaltered better than unaltered. Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay, play.
Knox Attorney Service was attempting to serve you with a contempt order, and so it is possible that you told Dan that you were going to kill the kids, you were going to kill Tim, you were going to burn the house down.
I was not mad. I was terrified. I was scared. I was alone. I had no way to defend myself against him. I was not mad. I was scared.
This was a process server who was knocking on the door to serve you with a piece of paper.
Right.
Okay. And Dan Broderick did call the process server off, didn't he? He called him, he got in touch with him, and he told him not to do it.
Yes, he did.
And the vandalism continued. The restraining order didn't work. The asking you not to do it didn't work. The attempting to serve you
Where are
with
you
a
now?
contempt
Where
order
are you?
after January of 1986. In February of 1986, that's when you went over and drove the car through the front door, correct?
Okay.
And that's when you tried to go over to Coral Reef and burn the house down and smash the sliding glass door, correct?
I'm
In February of
confused.
86?
Totally confused. But that letter was just July of 86. So now we're going backwards?
When the Knox Attorney Service attempted to serve you, it was January of 1986.
Okay. So from there, okay.
And he wasn't able to serve you with any papers. He wasn't able to serve you with any attempted contempt action to go to court, and the vandalism did continue. Yes.
Is now the knocking into his door what you're referring to as the vandalism?
Yes.
Well, I don't consider that vandalism.
Okay.
And that's a different house, and they had moved, and no, the vandalism as such in Coral Reef did not continue. They moved out.
They're now in Cyprus, and the
Yes.
driving through to the front door was at Cyprus, correct?
Yes.
And in January of 1986, when we were talking about, they were already in Cyprus, living in Cyprus.
I think so, sometime in January 86.
And you did continue, or you began at that point, leaving the messages on his machine. That's when he put the message machine, answering machine at his house, correct?
Probably.
It was, again, that summer that you complained that Dan sent the children to camp, correct?
You're doing a great job of reminding me about all of this stuff. Because I was absolutely, I mean, as we get it in order and it all comes back the way it was, yeah, he moved to Cyprus. And yeah, he put the telephone machine on so I couldn't reach my kids. And yeah, he had the restraining order. But he wasn't doing anything to make peace or get an agreement or to see that I saw the kids at all.
Okay.
So, you're trying to,
Excuse me, Mrs. Broderick, thank you. You've answered the question. Well, perhaps it'd be appropriate to take a break, Your Honor, so the witness can compose herself.
Do you want to break, Ms. Broderick?
no, I'm fine.
Please help you. Ms. Broderick?
I have something for
Okay,
you.
okay. She just says she doesn't need a break. Go ahead.
It was after you drove the car through the front door when Kim and Lee were home, and it was after you began leaving the messages on the answering machine in 1986 when the psychologist again recommended that the children perhaps would be better off if they got out of town, correct?
How would I know any of that? No psychologist ever spoke to me.
Are you saying Dr. Sparta never spoke to you?
Not that I can
I have
recall.
an objection as to the form of the question.
Sustained. It's rephrasing.
You never had any conversations with Dr. Sparta about the children?
I called him a few times to meet with him and talk with him, but I don't remember that no, I never met him. I never saw him.
Okay.
And we may have had a conversation on the phone that I initiated because I wanted to talk to him, but I don't remember that he recommended those sorts of things to me.
Isn't it true that Dr. Sparta specifically called you because he wanted to get your input, he wanted to get your help with doing something for these kids, and you refused?
I don't remember that, no, because it was my feeling that I wanted to get involved with Dan and with the children in therapy, always.
Do you recall Dr. Jacobson trying to get you and Dan involved with therapy with the kids and you refusing?
Dr. Jacobson definitely tried to get Dan involved in therapy years before, and Dan would not come in.
I'm talking about in 1985.
No, I wouldn't have refused that. I mean, I don't remember that he recommended that. I don't remember that he ever called Dan. I don't remember that ever happening.
And you're saying that you don't remember Dr. Sparta ever calling you and trying to get you involved, and all you wanted to do with Dr. Sparta was tell him how awful you thought Dan Broderick was.
I don't remember him ever offering me to come speak to him. I wanted to come speak to him, but I was very wary of Dan's expert witnesses being hired for the adversarial legal system and not for straight out innocuous therapy.
And that's what you're saying he did with Dr. Sparta when he hired Dr. Sparta before the divorce?
Yes.
And he was hiring him for to be an adverse witness?
Yes, because he was referred to Dr. Sparta by his divorce attorney, and that's the way divorce attorneys work.
To
Yes.
get help for the kids?
No.
Okay, well, if you never talked to Dr. Sparta, how do you know what he was hired for and what he was trying to do on behalf of your children?
Because I've been in the system long enough to know how it works now, that lawyers have particular psychologists and experts that they hire when they want that expert to say a certain thing. Dan had sole custody of the kids. He wanted to keep sole custody of the kids, and Dr. Sparta was hired to make sure that that happened.
In 1985, Dan had sole custody of the kids because you had given him custody of the kids. He had taken the kids to Dr. Sparta to get help.
I never gave Dan sole custody of the children. I put the children, as we've testified, back at Coral Reef when Dan took the rental roof away from us and told us we'd have no home. The children went back to Coral Reef. Then he sent them away for the summer. And then when they came back from the summer is when the real trouble started, where he had restraining orders to keep me away from the kids in the house. I never gave Dan custody of the children, but I didn't have a house or monthly income to take them with me, ever. And after what Dan did in February of 85, cutting us off without a house or any income, I didn't think he wouldn't do it again. I thought he would do it again.
It wasn't until September, October, November of 86, after living through this of 18 months worth of the vandalism, of the obscene phone calls, of attempting to get a restraining order, of attempting to get you served with a contempt because you weren't following the restraining order. It was at that point that he withheld some money from the voluntary support, correct?
Where are you?
September, October, November of
86.
1986.
There was no vandalism ever in the Cypress house, except for the day that he sold the house and I bumped the car into his front door. There was never any claims of vandalism there again.
Was it September, October, and November of 1986 when he finally withheld some money from your voluntary support?
I know he did it during those months, but I don't think it was the first time.
And you've talked about this letter that he sent you that was that had a balance of minus $1,300, correct?
Yes, and the month before was 400 or something, and
May I have marked, Your Honor, as People's Exhibit
78.
The letter dated October 31st, 1986.
So Mark.
If you could just look at this letter for me and identify it as the letter that you've been referring to where there was a negative balance of $1,300.
yes.
And it is true that even though he was attempting to get you to stop the vulgar words that you were using with the kids, that he did pay for your mortgage that month, that he did pay for your gasoline bill that month, that he did pay a $430 bill at the Polo store, and that he also did send you your Campstead check for $2,300, correct?
So what,
Well, it wasn't really a negative $1,300, was it? He didn't send you negative money. He didn't tell you you owed him $1,300. In fact, he paid your mortgage bill, he paid your gas bill,
No.
and he sent you a check for $2,300.
Absolutely.
Your Honor, and I would object, assumes facts, not evidence.
Overruled. I assume that's what's indicated in the letter. Exhibit
Not
78.
only was that minus,
Excuse me.
Is that what's indicated in Table 78?
That's Exhibit 78, yes.
Your Honor, it says that she owes, it's minus $1,300.
The letter speaks for
The letter-
itself.
Best evidence for the letter is what the letter says.
And you also received a check from Dan Broderick for $10,000 in November of 1986 so that you could cover expenses.
was that the advance on community that Mr. Hargreaves got?
Yes?
Well, that's my money that he's sending me as an advance on community. It wasn't a support payment. So it was my money that he forwarded to me.
There was a stipulation that Mr. Hargraves got for you because you were claiming you didn't have enough money in November of 1986, so that Dan Broderick would pay you $10,000, correct?
And another 10 to Mr. Hargreaves of community property, right. I believe that's at the same time.
Your Honor, I have marked as People's Exhibit 79, a stipulation in order.
So Mark.
If you could simply identify that as a stipulation for you to receive $10,000 in November of 1986?
I think so, yeah.
There was also another stipulation that Mr. Hargraves got for you, for Dan Broderick to send you $4,300, $2,000 towards the Christmas trip, another $2,300, as well as $10,000 for Mr. Hargraves' attorney's fees, correct?
I don't know what happened with that. That was very confusing, but I don't think I got that money and we didn't go on the Christmas trip.
Well, you got the $10,000 in November of 1986, didn't you?
Yes, that was my money, that he was finally, of all the community, he was going to let me have $10,000 of my money.
And it was November of, well, let's just have this identified. letter on her, check written to Elizabeth Broderick, dated November 13th, 1986.
So marked.
Is that the check that you received for $10,000?
I guess. It's one of them, yeah.
Well, is that a check that was written to you from Dan Broderick, and is it endorsed on the back by yourself?
Right. And it says community property distribution on the bottom.
Yeah, and what do you write on the check?
No way, AH,
And what does AH mean?
asshole.
You wrote little notes like that on all the checks that Dan Broderick sent
Only
you,
when I
didn't
thought
you?
I was being cheated like this, yes.
Well,
I got cheated out of $20,000 in one day with Mr. Hargreaves, and it was a huge mistake. Dan Broderick was not supposed to be paying my support with community property. Those are two separate things.
you complained to Mr. Hargraves that you didn't have any money to live off of in October, November, December of January 1986, and that's why you needed some money. You needed the $10,000 or any money from Dan Broderick, correct?
Yeah, and it's Christmas time again, too. This always pops up in November.
And you didn't have enough money that year to take the children for Christmas because you didn't have enough money to go skiing, correct?
The children went skiing every year at Christmas. Dan took them the previous year, so I thought I'd take them this year. Plane tickets, lift tickets, hotel rooms, etc. cost a lot of money. Dan said he'd give me the money to pay for a ski trip. I made the reservations in Utah, just like where he went in '85. I made the reservations, and then when he went to give me the money for the ski trip, he sent $2,000. And
Which
I
was
said,
what you had agreed on. You had
oh
agreed
no,
on $2,000.
$2,000 wouldn't even get us on the plane, much less lift ticket and a hotel and everything.
So you
for a
wanted to
week.
go on a ski trip. In order to take the children for Christmas of that year, you wanted to go on a ski trip, and you had to have Dan Broderick pay you more money because $2,000 wasn't enough to do it.
No, that's not really it. The kids want to go on a ski trip. And if they came with me, they could go on a ski trip if I had enough money. If I didn't have enough money, they should stay with him and go on a ski trip.
Okay. And
It's the
you,
only time of the year they can go.
you refused to take them for that Christmas because you claimed you didn't have enough money to take them on the ski trip.
I couldn't afford that much money out of the budget that I had at that time. I couldn't afford over $10,000 for a week of skiing.
Your Honor, may I have marked as People's Exhibit 81, a series of 22 checks from September to December of 1986.
So marked.
If we could just go through these checks.
So maybe I'm not an attorney, never been through divorce, I don't know. When the community money, the $10,000 that he sent her, wasn't that for her attorney to pay her attorney's fees? Because did we see Mr. Hargraves? They say his name different all the time. One of her former attorneys that we saw earlier said he never got paid anything. So I'm very confused right in the moment. If she kept all that and she was supposed to give it to him, or if she just, I don't know what she did. I'm confused. Yes, it is very wild, and I can imagine it's probably gotten worse since this happened. It was Hargraves. Okay, said he didn't get the money. All right, that's what I thought. But then I thought the prosecutor said that was the $10,000 check was for him. And she says she thought it was hers to keep. So she just didn't pay him, is how I was working that out in my mind. Yes, I believe she was. Puddletown. Puddletown. Notice your autocorrect didn't do anything with that one. I'm just cracking up watching you write some weird stuff will come across and you're like, WTF autocorrect. I know. I'm sorry about your struggle, Puddletown, but it's hilarious. Oh my goodness. All right. Thanks for the clarification, Shinny, because I was trying to I've been trying to kind of work this out and take some notes there, here and there. I think Dan first said it was for him, but Dan can't say how to spend the funds. The question now that Dan is dead, did Hargraves get the money? And say he didn't. I thought that community fund, whatever, was for her to pay the attorneys, and that was different than support she was getting and all the rest of the stuff that she was getting money for her mortgage and everything else. She might have gotten attorney's fees in the divorce, but that could have gone directly to her attorney. Yeah, I don't know. True. And he also can't tell us his side of things, which I'd love to know. Carmen. That conversation is true. Yep. Thanks, Carmen. Oh, got it. Okay. Community property. I was thinking maybe that Dan had to put money separate from everything he was giving her for her attorney's fees. I guess I wasn't looking at it as community property, which makes sense. Yeah, a community settlement in my mind is money for the house. Attorney's fees should not be part of the community property settlement. I agree, but nobody asked us, Jenny. Darn them. Yes. I won't tell you how the rest of that conversation went, Gabby. I don't know where the money went. Because typically that wouldn't be an inheritance. She wouldn't have been inheriting anything. I think the kids got the money, but I've not been able to find out like how much that was. The fees would be separate in most states, California, Louisiana. Louisiana be cray-cray? I know. It was a funny conversation. Yes, the one kid, the Lee got nothing. So yeah, Betty should have, I would imagine, was removed. Linda didn't have any kids. So I can't. I'll tell. I am not. AJ has her host on the corner, sleeping corn. Betty would not get anything because she unalived them. And I thought that. I knew with like an inheritance, if you are convicted of unaliving the person you're trying to get the inheritance from, you would not get it. Or the insurance money or the other type of stuff. Interesting. Linda's parents would be her beneficiary. Good. I hope they got something. I don't know what Linda had, but I'd say she had some money. I mean, I would say Dan was paying her pretty well. Yeah, yes, life insurance. I have Shani, there was something I was following and reading about that the inheritance, they were not going to be able to get the inheritance because they had been convicted of unaliving the person they were trying to get the inheritance from. And I don't know what state that was in. So it was interesting to me. Like all these people that go do this stuff to get insurance money, to get inheritance money, and then you get nothing. Like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You get nothing. All right. I'm going to hit play. You got kicked out of here? Huh. Sorry. As there should be. No, wow. They should not get anything. Oh no, Shani. That's crazy. All right, Carmen. See you later. Glad you got your dash cams hooked up. Glad Cheyenne's bottle of whiskey made it back. And it's not in my house, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. Lufa. And I'm hitting play.
Mrs. Broderick, and if you could identify them as checks that you wrote on your account. The first one dated September 3rd, 1986. Is that a check for $1,000 to Saks Fifth Avenue?
A charge payment.
September 2nd, 1986. Is that a check for $511 to Bullock's?
Yes.
September 2nd, 1986. Is this a check for $1,000 to Home Federal on your MasterCard?
Right.
September 3rd, 1986. A check for $1,000 on Great American MasterCard?
Right.
October 2nd, 1986, a check for $1,199 to Saks Fifth Avenue.
Right.
October 2nd, 1986, a check for $500 to Great American on your MasterCard.
Right. These are all charge payments.
October 5th, 1986, a check for $200 to Home Federal.
Right.
November 6th, 1986, a check for $500 to Nordstrom's.
Right.
November 6th, 1986, a check for $700 to iMagnum.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
November 6th, 1986, a check for $2,000 to Saks Fifth Avenue.
Yes.
November 6th, 1986, a check for $1,000 to Great American.
Mm-hmm.
November 6th, 1986, another $1,000 to Home Federal.
Yes. I'm sorry.
November 25th, 1986, a check for $561.80 to CG Boutique.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
December 1st, 1986, a check for $500 to Nordstrom.
Yes.
December 1st, 1986, a check for $1,000 to iMagnum.
Yes.
December 1st, 1986, a check for $1,500 to Saks.
Yes.
December 1st, 1986, a check for $1,000 to Home Federal.
Yes.
December 1st, 1986, a check for $1,000 to Great American.
Yes.
January 1st, 1987, a check for $1,000 to Saks Fifth Avenue.
Yes.
January 1st, 1987, a check for $1,000 to iMagnum.
Yes.
January 1st, 1986, a check for $980 to Bowers Jewelry Store.
Yes. Are these?
January 1st, 1987, a check to Great American for $1,000.
So these are 86 and 87.
It was on November 1st, 1986, that you went over to his house to confront him and you were arrested, correct?
Yes.
And you had previously testified that the reason that you went over there was because of receiving this negative $1,300 letter. That was what made you so angry.
He may have told me on the phone that morning that I wasn't getting any money that month.
Isn't it true that you previously testified that the reason you went over there was because you had received that letter that showed a negative $1,300 balance, and that's what made you so angry?
I knew that I was getting minus $1,300. That's what he told me. I don't know if I don't remember having the letter in my hand, but that's what he told me because of the fines of going to his house when he was in Europe and calling him names on the phone.
That's not what you testified to before, though, was it? It was because you said that you had received that letter. You'd received the negative $1,300 letter, and that's what you were so angry about, and that's why you went over there. You're obviously angry about something.
I went over there because he told me I was getting minus $1,300. I don't know if it was in the letter or in person, but that's what he told me. And I went over there and said, how can I, pay the bills and live? And the previous month I only got $1,000 something, and the next month I only got $454.
But you didn't receive that negative $1,300 until November the 9th, a whole week after November the 1st.
No, I don't know. I would have had it before then. What's the date on it?
This assumes facts not in evidence. The district attorney's already testified she got the payment every week, beginning of every month.
It's the same.
First week.
It's the same.
Would it refresh your recollection to see a diary entry dated November the 9th, Monday, in which you indicate money, negative $1,300 arrives?
This is a diary page on 11/9. That doesn't mean that money arrived on that day. I was thrown in jail that day, and I obviously didn't make any entries in any diary.
November the 9th, it says November the 9th, Monday, right next to it. So that's Monday, November the 9th. And underneath that, you've written money, negative $1,300 arrives, correct?
That doesn't mean it arrived on 11/9. In fact, did you show me that it arrived earlier on those checks previous?
No.
That doesn't mean that it arrived on 11/9. It should have arrived by the 2nd or the 3rd. November 1st was a Saturday.
You
Maybe.
have said that you were upset on November the 1st, 1986, because Dan Broderick was reigning president of the San Diego Bar Association and was brazen enough to be flaunting his receptionist as his girlfriend at the Blackstone Ball. Talk about giving someone the middle finger. That's what you were upset about on November the 1st, correct?
I didn't know it was the Blackstone Ball until I got over there, until I saw Dan and he was getting ready for it. I didn't know it was that night. And I did think years later, whenever that is that you're reading, years later, I thought, that son of a bitch. I mean, look what he's doing. But that night, I didn't even know it. All I was mad about is I wasn't getting any money to live that month. I was getting minus $1,300, and he did charge me the next month, the minus $1,300.
You were obviously spending money to live that month, though,
I
correct?
had been living on credit cards totally and nonstop since February of '85 when he walked out. I carried at least $50,000 in credit card debt at all times. So every time I got any money, I paid down credit cards. But I basically lived on credit cards.
When you wrote this, that Dan Broderick was flaunting his receptionist as his girlfriend at the Blackstone Ball and talk about giving someone the middle finger. This was November 1st of 1986. It had been 22 months since you had been separated, correct? Almost
Your Honor,
2 years.
Your Honor, I'll object that I don't believe that was written November 1st, 1986.
Well, show her.
No, I'm not indicating it was written November the 1st. I'm talking about, that's what you're saying about November the 1st.
Yes, looking back, that's right. That he cut me off from no money. It was after the bifurcation, and he was treating me like that. And then he's showing up, with his girlfriend at the same time he's treating me like that. I just thought it was horrible. I thought it was bizarre.
Okay, so on November the 1st, 1986, 22 months after separation, you thought that it was horrible that he was
That I had
dating someone.
That I had no monthly support and that I had no settlement.
That's-
22 months later, correct.
Objection, that also assumes facts not in evidence and is argumentative.
Overruled, that's consent.
I'm not talking right now about the money. I'm talking about your statement that he was brazen enough to be dating someone else 22 months after separation.
No, not dating someone else. I obviously knew he was dating Linda from the very beginning. I thought it was brazen that he would throw his wife of so many years in jail for simply coming to him and saying, what am I supposed to do here? How do you want me to live? You've got the restraining orders, you've got the kids, you've got all the money, you've got all the control. What do you want out of me? It doesn't matter that he was dating Linda Kolkena 22 months later. It matters that I've got no settlement and have no life and no home and no car and nothing. That's what matters.
In November of 1986, you had no home and no car.
Right, they were both in Dan Broderick's name, so I didn't feel that I had a home of my own or was driving even a car of my own. I had no court-ordered support, so I didn't know that I could make monthly payments if I went out and got a home or car of my own. I had no way to go get a home or car of my own.
And he was brazen enough to be dating somebody else.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. This is
No, obviously, I knew he was
argumentative.
dating.
Sustained.
But That is what you,
Just stop interrupting each other. You're gonna have a terrible record. You're both talking at once. Just go one at a time.
that is what you say there. Those are your
What is
words.
that? What is that there?
Housewives revolt,
Oh, that's in 1988 or something?
and are these not your words?
No, they are
Dan
my
Broderick
words, yes. They are my words in 88 or 89, whenever I wrote that looking back, I thought he was a son of a bitch. I thought he was horrible. But it wasn't that he was dating somebody else at all. It had nothing to do with it. It had to do with the way he was treating me.
He was flaunting his
And the children.
receptionist as his girlfriend at the Blackstone Ball. That's what
Those
you're
were my
saying.
words in 88 or 89, yes.
And you were angry about that. You were angry about the fact that he was taking Linda to the Blackstone Ball.
I was angry about the fact that he had the nerve to throw me in jail for simply coming to his home after 22 months of separation and the 2.5 years that went before that and saying, come on, Dan, what do you want me to do here?
When
What do
got
you want me to
jail,
do?
You did call Gail Forbes and tell her to call the newspapers, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I called a different girl. Gail
You're-
Forbes wasn't home.
You're saying that you never had that conversation with
No.
Gail Forbes that she testified to?
No,
That you asked her to call?
that's a
Burl-
lie. I never asked anybody to call him. Why would anybody call Burl Stiff? Burl Stiff is a party reporter. That's not hardly his line of work.
You were,
No, she's making that all up. That never happened. I called a different friend who called Brad, who came to get me.
you were represented by Bill Hargraves at the time, weren't you?
No,
You had signed a retainer agreement, and you paid him a retainer in September of 1986.
I've already testified to that I hired him to file one paper called a response to the divorce. I did not retain him as an attorney on this case, and he did file the response.
You had contacted him, you had paid him a $750 retainer to file something on your
Right,
behalf.
and he
He
did
was
that.
representing you at that time.
No. I never gave him a retainer or hired him to represent me on the big case. As I've said, he wasn't the kind of lawyer I needed, but I needed someone to file a response, and I didn't know how to do that. So I said, how much will it be to file a response?
He was the one that you ultimately went to go get a support order for you, right?
Yes, yes.
So there was no need to go over and confront Dan Broderick on November the 1st about your money situation.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. There's a retainer agreement and evidence, best evidence is there at the time she was retained.
Sustain.
Well, it is true that it was possible for you to have called Mr. Hargraves, who you had had contact with and was representing you in some capacity since September, to ask him to do the confronting or to do something about getting some more money.
I've already
Objection
said,
calls for speculation.
Sustain.
Was there anything preventing you from calling up Mr. Hargraves in November to ask for help?
I didn't want to use Bill Hargraves. I didn't think he was the kind of lawyer I needed. And there was also nothing preventing Dan Broderick from settling with me on any terms. There was nothing keeping him from writing a check.
Mr. Broderick did pay $10,000 to Bill Hargraves for attorney's fees, correct?
Against my wishes and without my knowing it, yes. That was my money that Dan sent Bill Hargraves, the same $10,000 he refused to send Mr. Jaffe for over a year.
That's right. You were angry, you say, because he wouldn't pay the $10,000 according to you to Mr. Jaffe,
That's right.
and nothing got filed and nothing got done, and Mr. Jaffe didn't represent you.
Right.
Then you went to hire Mr. Hargraves. Now, in order to get anything done, he pays Mr. Hargraves to represent you. He pays the $10,000, and now he's the bad guy for paying the attorney's fees, correct?
That's not the way it's supposed to go. We're supposed to do it the way Mr. Jaffe said to do it, is that $10,000 comes out of both pockets, and the judge later decides who pays what.
And that's,
Dan Broderick decided that it would only come out of my pocket.
Mrs. Broderick, isn't that stipulation say that it's an advance on community property? Community property is property that belongs to the two of you.
No, it
It's
says
been
advance on
paid-
my half of the community property is what the letter says.
You testified that Dan at one point did take you to see Dr. Zedimer in 1985, correct?
I didn't realize the day we went that he was taking me. I thought we went to Dr. Zed in La Jolla.
He wanted you to go see Dr. Zedimer.
I thought we were going together, but as it turned out, yes.
Well, obviously, he had expressed some concern, and he wanted you to go see Dr. Zedimer, or wanted both of you, whatever you understood, there was some concern there about having you see Dr. Zedimer.
Oh yeah, Dan wanted me committed.
Did he ask Dr. Zedimer to commit you?
Not on that day because I didn't stay. I left. If Dan wasn't going to stay and have some sort of therapy together, I was not going to fall into that trap again.
This was October of 1985, when you've already testified that you understood that you were getting divorced. He filed the divorce papers
Correct.
on you.
Correct.
So you knew that there was no desire on his part to get couples counseling. He'd filed the dissolution in September of 1985.
But I didn't know that.
You've been served with the papers.
Not in September.
Okay, that's what it says on your board over there, that you were
No,
served
it
with
says
the dissolution.
filed. I wasn't served until October 28th.
Okay.
And I never knew that they were filed until much later. And I don't remember, if you have it in front of you, the exact date of Dr. Zedimer. I'm not sure if I did get those first divorce papers.
Whether you'd gotten the divorce papers or not, you knew by October of 1985 that you were not getting back together. You knew that there was a divorce impending. You knew that he was filing for divorce.
I'm not sure if I did actually know that, but I did also know that I had at least 5 friends, male and female, going through similar things. And it would have.
Mrs. Broderick, excuse me, that's, if you just answer my question, you knew that you and Dan were getting a divorce.
I'm not sure if I did on that day. I'm not
You
sure.
knew that it was Dr. Zedimer who wanted to see you by yourself, not the two of you, that he explained that to you. That he-
Why would Dr. Zedimer want to see me? He doesn't know me from Adam.
When you went to see him, when Dan took you there, he told you that this is not couples therapy. This is something that I think I need to see you about.
And he just wanted to see me for no reason.
No, there was a lot of reason. It had to do with
And
all
Dan
of the
told him
vandalism
that he should.
and all of the
oh,
horrible
I see.
language you were using for the kids and how traumatic it was for them, and something needed to be done. Your rage was out of control. Is that not correct?
Oh, Dan felt that something needed to be done about me, yes.
Well, Dan wasn't the only one, was he? Your friends tried to get you to do something too. Didn't Jeannie Milliken and Lynn McGuire try to get you to go to that program in Florida that you refused to go to?
You're a little mixed up. No, Lynn McGuire and Hillary Brady wanted me to go to the codependency program because they could see that I was upset and suffering and stuff. And Jeannie Milliken didn't have anything to do with that.
Jeannie Milliken wasn't there and wasn't part of that conversation and encouraging you to go to this program in Florida,
Absolutely not. No.
telling you that they had talked to Dan and that Dan was willing to pay for it, that they'd already gotten the reservations, that they'd gotten the plane ticket. It was all ready to go and you refused to go.
Jeannie Milliken had nothing. I hadn't seen her for months or years or talked to her on the phone or anything. She had nothing to do with any of that. Lynn McGuire and Hillary Brady came to my house very late one night around 11 o'clock and woke me up. And they had this scheme that they were going to send me to Florida to this program. And I couldn't leave San Diego. It was when my house was empty and everything. I thought Dan would sell the house if I left.
Yeah, you
And I didn't want to leave the kids.
You indicated that you didn't, that you felt you were afraid to go to Florida because you thought Dan might sell the house if you left. Hadn't you gone to Canada for a month? You weren't afraid about going to Canada, that Dan
I
would
think it was
sell the
7 or
house.
10 days to Canada. And Dan didn't know about it because it was the summer and the kids were not at Coral Reef.
And what exactly had Dan done to make you think he was going to sell Calle de Cielo?
I told you, I always thought he would. He sold Coral Reef that had 10 years worth of equity in it. This house had no equity. I thought it would be gone like that. I used to joke around and say, oh my God, I've been away from home for 4 hours. Maybe my house is gone.
And it never happened, did it, Mr. Broderick?
No, he finally took his name off it when he was court ordered, but not voluntarily.
Okay, let's talk about the sale of Coral Reef. You indicated that the sale of Coral Reef came as a total shock. That was your testimony.
Yes,
It is true that you knew that Dan Jaffe and Mr. Ashworth, who was representing Dan Broderick, had been negotiating for the sale of Coral Reef for months.
Mr. Jaffe came down that one day. He was not involved in negotiating for the sale over months. He came down that one day.
You knew that they'd been sending letters back and forth to each other regarding how to sell Coral Reef.
No, I don't know about that. But I know he came down that one day and tried to strike a deal, and I would
Your
not
Honor,
sell it.
May I have Marcus Peoples Exhibit 81?
82.
82, a series of 3 letters.
For me,
One dated December 31st, 1985, one dated January 2nd, 1986, and one dated January 14th, 1986.
so marked.
If you could take a look at these letters, that are letters between Mr. Jaffe and Mr. Ashworth, do you recognize those letters?
I really don't know.
Copies were sent to you, weren't they? Down at the bottom, it indicates that copies were sent to Elizabeth Broderick.
It does say that, yes, but I was not interested. This one says I should call a real estate agent, so I definitely wouldn't have done that. It says that's called Peggy Chodorow, and I wasn't going to sell the house, so I wouldn't have called a real estate agent. And this wants me to sign a quit claim deed, which I wouldn't have done either. unbelievable.
Are those not letters in which they're discussing the sale of the Coral Reef property?
Yes, yes.
And the letters begin as far back as December of 85, December of 85, January of 86. You were aware that your attorney, the attorney representing you at the time, and Mr. Broderick's attorney were negotiating for the sale of Coral Reef, correct?
I don't know if they were. I wasn't selling Coral Reef until it was part of a package.
The question is, were you not aware that your attorney was negotiating that with Mr. Broderick's attorney?
I don't know if he was. I don't know.
You did receive these letters.
Yes?
Mr. Jaffe also sent another letter dated January the 9th that's already been marked as People's 48. Do you recognize that letter? If you just indicate for me yes or no, do you recognize that letter? It indicates that a copy of that was also sent to you.
If it says that, yes.
And isn't it true, Mrs. Broderick, that in this letter, Mr. Jaffe says, I have now been able to determine, after speaking with Mrs. Broderick, the nature of her reluctance in signing the document to sell the Coral Reef property. I hope I can solve the impasse by the suggestion contained in this letter, which has been approved by Mrs. Broderick. It is Mrs. Broderick's contention.
No, I'm gonna object. This is improper, it's improper questioning.
Yeah, sustained. Just gonna ask her a question about the letter.
Yes.
You can do that without reading the letter.
Was it not your contention that $47,000 of presumably community funds were spent on the Coral Reef property since the parties separated on improvements that Mrs. Broderick did not approve of? Was that not your contention?
I don't know. I mean, if that was the argument he was doing at that time, that was fine.
Well, you testified that you testified earlier that you didn't want to sell Coral Reef, that you had no desire to sell Coral Reef because you thought that it would be a profitable rental, correct?
I also thought I might end up living back in it with the children.
Is there anything, if you would just read this first page to yourself, where Dan Jaffe sets out your contentions, is there anything in that page that says anything about you wanting to hold on to the property because it would be a rental or because you would be moving back into it? Excuse me, Mrs. Broderick, if you would just read the first page, which is where it talks about that.
And what's your question?
Is there anything that it says in there about your desire to hold on to the property for any reason?
All this letter says to me is I'm prepared
Mrs.
to
Broderick,
go forward.
excuse me. If you could answer my question.
I can't answer your question.
Does it say anything in that letter about you wanting to hold on to the property, or does it not say you just want $47,000 more than Dan Broderick gets?
Your Honor.
This letter says different things to me.
I'm gonna object. It's argumentative.
It's not argument, Mr. Overrules. You can just answer the question. Is it in there or isn't it? In the first page. Yes or no?
Mrs. Broderick contends that, and then it is listed. Is there anything in your contention there that you wanted to hold on to the property because it was a profitable rental?
I don't
Yes or
know.
no?
I don't know. I'd have to read this whole letter and then I'll tell you what this letter says to me, because this letter says entirely different things to me.
I'm not asking what the letter says to you. I'm asking if there's anything in there that says you're contending.
My attorney might have said that I contended those things. That was his argument at the time, but there's other arguments in here, like he doesn't have his 10,000 retainer and he will not go forward on the case until he gets it. That's what that
Doesn't
letter
it say that she contends that she was not consulted concerning any of the improvements? That the improvements were either not properly done or done in such a manner as to depreciate the property? It's her contention, therefore, that Coral Reef property had a value of at least $325,000. The proposed selling price before Mr. Broderick expended $47,000 of community funds without her consent. And I have proposed the following to Mrs. Broderick, and she has accepted my suggestion. And that was to sell the property and to give you $47,000 over the 50% split.
But I never agreed to that.
Do you think that Mr. Jaffe was lying in here when he said he discussed this with you and that this was your contention and what you wanted?
Your Honor,
No, I
it's
explained.
argumentative.
The same.
It is true that you received $127,000 in cash after the sale of Coral Reef in March of 1987. Is isn't it?
I don't know when I received it. I did get some money after the forced sale and after I was in the mental institution, but I still didn't want to sell it.
My question was, did you receive $127,000 after the sale of that property?
I know I received some money, yes.
May I have Mark Joyner as people's next in order?
People's 83.
And reports to the settlement statement.
Somewhere.
If you would take a look at this settlement statement with respect to the sale of the property. Does it not indicate that one half of the proceeds plus $40,000 was paid to Elizabeth Broderick for a total of $127,784.41?
Yes,
And one half of the proceeds less $40,000 was paid to Daniel Broderick for a total of $47,000.
at that time, yes, but then I had to pay it back to him, the difference.
Did you not receive this money in 1986? March of 1986,
Okay.
which was when, well,
Well,
is that when Coral
I
Reef
just
was sold?
get
Did you-
confused with the years, yeah, okay,
Did
fine.
you drive through the front door of Dan's house in February of 1986?
I just kind of bumped it, yeah.
Okay. And you did receive $127,000 the next month.
That's what it said.
What did you do with that $127,000?
It was a community property split. I was not supposed to be supporting myself with it, which is what Dan wanted me to do all along, which is why he wasn't paying support payments. So I invested $100,000 of it in a life insurance policy, and I immediately spent the other $27,000 trying to make the home that I had livable for humans.
You invested $100,000 in 1986, and you spent the $27,000 on fixing up your home in 1986.
I believe so.
You also obviously could have spent $10,000 in paying Dan Jaffe his retainer fee at the time if you'd wanted, correct?
After the sale of the house, the day that the house was sold, and Mr. Jaffe informed me of the 4-hour notice, he said that we can expect this through proceeding. So I said, well, my God,
Excuse me, Mr. Broderick.
No,
My
it
question
wasn't gonna-
was, you could have paid $10,000 to Mr. Jaffe to represent you at that time, correct?
after the 4-hour notice, I didn't think hiring Dan Jaffe was a good idea because he told me that Dan would use the 4-hour notice at every opportunity.
You basically fired Dan Jaffe at that time.
I never hired him, so I couldn't have fired him.
Well, you told Jeanette DeWise that you were dissatisfied with his actions on your behalf, and you no longer use him.
I only realize even now how damaged I was by his inaction. He should have told me the day I signed that agreement in October 1985, the danger that I was in. I did not comprehend that this house could be sold, that Dan could pull the rug out from under me on the money, and that Dan would get sole custody, no visitation of the children.
Mr.
I didn't
Broderick,
know.
we're in February of 1986, and didn't Dan Jaffe, when he came down for that meeting, and when he got the agreement, and when he recommended that you sign it, he told you that if you didn't sign it, the property could get sold.
No, he
And
didn't.
so when he testified to that, he
I
was
firmly-
mistaken.
I firmly believed that with my name on that house, that nobody could sell that house unless I agreed to it.
And Mr. Jaffe explained to you that that wasn't true, and that's
No.
why he got you a good deal. And in fact, he told Jeanette DeWise that you wouldn't follow his directions. You wouldn't follow his advice.
He didn't give me that advice. That's why I was so taken off guard when I got
So
that phone call that
when
said
he-
the house was gone. I just didn't understand that anyone could sell that house without
Well,
my
you were-
permission.
You were there at that meeting, right? You were sitting down in the car when he went up.
Right, right.
He came down and went up, and he came down several times, negotiating the price of that.
And I
Not-
wouldn't agree to it. Right. I wouldn't agree to it. And I didn't know that the house could be sold by force in court with that word, the elicer. I had no idea that could happen. And I didn't want the house sold. I wanted it as part of a settlement. I've explained before, it was the only thing I could see that I knew had my name on half. Everything else I had no idea of.
Let this be a good time to take a morning recess. Ms.
Sure,
Wallace.
Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our morning recess at this time. We'll be in recess until 11:15. Please remember the admonition. Mayor of the people of the state of California, Rich Elizabeth Broderick, court finds all.
Church lady comes back after lunch. I don't know why they started doing that when Betty started testifying. It was like, I think the second day maybe. They started switching out the court reporters. I don't know why. Also, Gabby, yes, the judge is watching an episode of Baywatch in slow motion, followed by an episode of Gladiator. I want to see the crossover of the two. Maybe that's what he's watching. If the lawyer was on Baywatch, she would be a surfboard. Oh my goodness. Okie dokie. Benny Hill. Churchill is like, Judge, you owe me because they put those bloody sheets right next to my head. That was nice of you, Flashman. Well, I will give you a call next time I go to the grocery store. Not only did he put the bloody sheets next to her head, he scared her. Wasn't nice. He did that too. But he made her jump and does not do that to church lady. All right. All right, that was a nice little quick break.
Members of the jury panel are present. All counsel are present. Mrs. Broderick is present. You may proceed, Ms. Wells.
Thank you. When you indicated that you heard the news from Mr. Jaffe that the house had been sold, you acknowledged that he told you that you had received the 4-hour notice, correct? He told you that he had received that.
A telephone call.
And you were at home at the time. You were in the process of cooking dinner for guests. You had your parents over there at the time, right?
Yes, and Brian from Canada was there.
And you indicated that you dropped everything and charged over to Dan Broderick's house.
I told him I'd be right back.
You didn't tell your parents anything about where you were going or why you were going. You didn't tell the children anything about where you were going or why you were going. You just charged out of the house.
I think I told him I'd be right back. I have to talk to Dan.
Your parents were extremely upset about how you just charged out of the house that day, weren't they?
I don't know.
Did they ever indicate anything to that effect to you after the fact?
No.
You went over to Dan Broderick's house because you wanted to confront him. You were angry. You indicated you were absolutely furious at that point, correct?
And when I got the 4-hour notice that, or was heard that the house was sold in court. that
When
day.
you drove over to Dan Broderick's house, you were furious. You were angry. You wanted to confront him about it.
I wanted to know what happened to the house and who he sold it to and how much he got and where my half was and how he had done it.
And you were angry, correct?
I guess so, yeah.
And Dan Broderick knew from past experience, I mean, we're now in 1986, that when you were angry, you could be violent. You could be destructive.
Your Honor, objection called for speculation.
Same.
Hadn't you been violent with Dan Broderick only about 3 days before this incident? Hadn't you attacked him?
Not that I,
On January 30th, which would have been only a couple of days before this occurred, did you not attack him when he came over to pick up one of your daughters? Didn't you follow him back to the house and attack him with the metal key ring over the head?
not that I've heard of before.
Would it refresh your recollection to see a report that's dated January 30th, 1986?
I hope so. I don't
I
remember
guess
this.
she's going to say no. Doesn't recollect
I
or
don't know what
doesn't
vacation
refresh her
you're talking
memory.
about. I don't remember that.
So you don't remember any incident that would have occurred on the 30th of January, only a couple of days before this?
Sorry, I don't.
Did you ever hit Mr. Broderick on any other incident with your metal key ring or kick him?
I heard Lee say on the stand that when I banged the car into the door, I was hitting him with a key ring. Isn't that what somebody said? And that's the only thing that I know.
On any other incident, had you done that at any other time?
Not that I
Had
remember
you
at all.
thrown rocks at him in the past?
Not that I remember, no.
Had you ripped off his antenna of his car?
Oh, I know he said things like that in court years later, that I'd scratched his car and ripped his antenna off, but
You've admitted you're ripping his antenna off, haven't you?
it wasn't ripping his antenna off. Yes, I had his antenna in my hand when he pulled away, yeah.
Whether or not you recall this incident on the 30th, it is true that you had acted violently in the past when you were angry, correct?
Well, smushing the pie around and breaking a window, I guess, but he wasn't there either of those times.
And burning clothes and throwing stereos and smashing windows, etc. Those are things that he was well aware of in February of 1986, correct?
Yeah, but well, keep going, I guess.
So when you were there at his house in violation of a restraining order and angry, and given the history that there was between the two of you, he basically asked you to leave, to contact your attorney, that he didn't want to talk to you, correct?
Your Honor, Jack is arguing.
Overruled. You can answer that.
When he pulled up, the girls and I were standing out back, and I wasn't violent or threatening or anything at all. And yes, he didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want to tell me what he had done, and he never wanted to talk to me. He wanted to deal with me in court.
And so, well, were you angry at the time, though?
That he wouldn't talk to me?
Were you angry there when he pulled up?
Not really. I just said, and the girls were there. I said, look, I just want to talk to him, and he wouldn't talk to me. It's the same as November 1st when I was there. I was just simply there.
And the girls
To
don't
talk to
describe you as being very angry at the time?
Not that I know of, no.
So he asked you to leave, and you weren't angry at the time, and you left, and you went over to Coral Reef and tried to burn the house on fire, correct?
I don't remember any of that. We went in his house, at his house, and he was saying he was going to talk to me, but he really didn't talk to me, so I just left.
You don't remember going over to Coral Reef afterwards?
I was very, very upset. I was absolutely furious that he wouldn't talk to me, that he wouldn't.
The question is, do you remember going over to Coral Reef after you left his house and lighting it on fire and smashing the sliding glass door?
I know you have pictures of that, but I don't remember doing that.
You do remember after you left Coral Reef coming back and driving your car into his front door, though, right?
Yeah.
So there's this blank spot of memory from the time that you left his house. There's just a total blank until the time that you're driving back to his house to smash into it.
I don't know how much of a blank there is, how much of a time.
Well, what do you remember after you left his house? What did you do? Where did you go?
I was just all shaking and all upset, and I didn't know what to do, and I was just absolutely furious that he wouldn't deal with me and that he had stolen the house, and I went back and I bammed the car into his front door on purpose.
Well, you drove back to La Jolla, though. I mean, obviously you had.
She just said it. She just said it. I was absolutely furious. Lawyer. She just admitted. I was absolutely furious. She knows. I can't stand. Listen, I have said all three of them were awful to each other over and over and over and over again. They all knew how to push each other's buttons. I've said it, and I've said it 1,000 times. I don't believe she doesn't remember. She is always the victim, and it just drives me crazy. Just admit your part in it. We can't hear their part because you put some projectiles in there. But in them, few here and there. But just admit your part. Like, you all had a part. Yours was just the worst. That's driving me crazy how she just can't answer a freaking question. It is not that hard. Yeah, I messed up. Yeah, I was horrible. Yeah, I did this. Whatever. Own up to it. You did it. Everything was not their fault. Exactly. Puddleton is driving me crazy. She doesn't think she did anything wrong. And she did a lot wrong, just like they did. I'm not excusing Dan. And it drives me crazy that people think I am. I am not excusing Dan. I have never excused Dan. I'm not excusing Linda. They were all three horrible. It's like, ugh. She's driving me nuts. Just raise your watch hand because your shoes are already ruined with all our bullshit. No kidding. I'm surprised she didn't say it, Daddy Short Nuts. The house rammed into me. My car was in park. Oh, no, flashback. It's not even about that. I don't care. I've read. I'll tell you at the end. I have. I came across some stuff, not on anything to do with me at all. But man, I don't get people. I don't get them at all. And it's like been driving me crazy. Yes, lawyers that don't listen after asking the question. She said it. She just admitted it. Also, stop giving her stuff. I know you're trying to get it in. She's never going to admit. You could hand her birth certificate and be like, well, it said something different to me. Or I don't know. Maybe. Like, this year you were born? Maybe. Hey, and she's not the only one who does that. People do it all the time. But, yeah. I just want to. Her look that she has right now, I bet Dan saw 1,000 times. You can't prove your name is Betty. Alrighty, here we go. Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest. She's been driving me crazy this whole entire time. Yes. 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 She is arrogant and eye rolls and sighs and laughing. And just like anytime that her lawyer gets an objection sustained, she just has this little look of like, haha, on her face. And it irritates the crap out of me. Yes, Ronnie, she does. I was thinking, like, could you imagine having a conversation with this woman that turned into an argument about, it could be about, is the wall cream or off-white? And she would stick to her answer and call it blue no matter what. Just to prove somebody else wrong. And it's getting old. It's eggshell. Oh, absolutely. Like, she does. She is like, boom, Gabby. Absolutely. She has to be right. Yep. Yep. I was just saying, like, maybe she's lucky she's alive. I don't know. All right, I'm going to push. God, I'm not the only one that's just like unalienable. What'd you say earlier? Little town. I don't know if it was funny. Gabby will remember. And your autocorrect is on. It's just doing its own thing tonight. It's I love it. Yes, let autocorrect type for you because it'll be very entertaining.
I don't remember.
You could have gone back to your house where your parents were and where your guests were. You didn't do that, even though you drove back to La Jolla. You drove to the house in Coral Reef, correct?
I don't remember. When
does the memory pick up then on the way back to Dan Broderick's house?
I don't remember on the way back to Dan Broderick's house. I just remember banging into his door and being careful not to hit one of those white columns that's holding up a roof or something.
And when you say banging into his door, you say that you just bumped into the front door?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the bump is what caused this damage?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you would describe as a bump?
With a car, yes.
And you backed up and you bumped again, didn't you?
I don't remember that. I just remember banging into the door.
Did you hear Lee testify that you did that?
I thought it was Kim and the chainsaw noise and all that stuff
Did you
that
hear,
said that.
did you hear Lee testify about you backing up and going again and Dan yelling, Bets, what are you doing?
I don't remember that myself. If
Okay.
Lee said that, I didn't remember him hitting me until Lee said it.
You have made a statement in the past, for example, when you wrote in your book in 1988, I drove back to his mansion in the slums and purposely and carefully rammed my car into his front door just to show him he couldn't get away with this. Correct? That was your statement.
Yes.
So in 1988, you didn't have any problems remembering driving back and carefully and purposefully ramming your car into his front door.
No, in 1988, I didn't have any problem remembering it.
Okay. You also had a knife in your car at the time too, correct? When you drove over to his house.
I've heard testimony to that. I don't.
This isn't 2025, lady, when you're testifying. It was 1991 from 1988. It's not that far. Well, maybe in 1988 it was okay to ram the house. Shani, I love the fact that you're out there. Like you've been in that area. With La Cresta area being said to be the slums. I'm gonna take it it's not. Yeah, I'm sure the house is a piece of crap, but hey, she didn't hit that support column. So the roof wouldn't come down on anybody. She just bumped it. Little bump, little tap. You don't have to call the police for those. Exchange information, but there's no damage. Although we've seen the pictures, there was some damage.
Remember that. I don't know if there was a knife. Nobody said I had a knife in my hand or anything.
So you don't recall having a large knife that was found on the floorboard of your car that day when you were arrested?
I'm sorry, I don't.
You told the people at Claremont Hospital after you were arrested that day that you were perfectly justified in what you'd done, didn't you?
I was furious.
And you felt perfectly justified.
And
That was totally
banging into
justified
his
what
door.
you had done. And you didn't have any concern about the fact that you could have injured either one of your children who might have been coming out the front door when you rammed your car into it.
The children were in the back of the house. Two of the children were with me. The larger children were down in the back of the house. There was
How do you know the children were in the back of the house?
because
You'd been
I
gone.
just left there.
You'd been gone over to Coral. You'd driven all the way over to La Jolla. You'd gotten a can of gasoline. You'd tried to light the house on fire. You'd thrown a brick through the sliding glass door. You'd driven all the way back from La Jolla. How did you know your children were in the process of walking out that front door?
No, I didn't. I just guessed they were in the back of the house because that's where they were. That's
And
where
if-
they were eating dinner, I think.
The last time you testified, you said before you were shown those photographs, you said you weren't concerned because the whole house was under construction and the whole front of the house had drapes and there was no furniture and everything was under construction.
That's what I thought.
And that was not true, was it?
I still thought it was like that.
The only reason that you have to back off on that is because you've been hinted with the photographs. Isn't that true?
But I haven't backed off on that. That was my memory of that time.
You indicated to Jeanette DeWise in 1989, in January of 1989, you had a full recollection of ramming your car through the front door, and you told Jeanette DeWise you were proud of it. I'd do it again, only I'd do it better, is what she said.
In 1989, what you're calling a full recollection is that, I knew that happened way back then, but it's not a moment-to-moment recollection of actually what I thought or was feeling and that happened at that time. It's that many years later.
Well, when Jeanette DeWise was asking you about it, you didn't tell her that you didn't have any recollection of it, and you didn't know really what happened. And
She
you didn't
wasn't
remember.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
Did you tell Jeanette DeWise that you didn't have any recollection or you didn't remember what happened?
She wasn't-
I'm going to object is she's read what you said, which is what she's testified to. It's argumentative.
That last question is not argumentative overruled.
She wasn't cross-examining me about little things like that. It was just a very simplistic, that's what happened that day. Very simplistic. She didn't ask me, what did you remember about this and what did you remember about that? It wasn't a detailed recollection, but I know I banged my car into his door on that day. And I know as time went on, not on that day, as time went on, I made jokes about if I'd known it was going to get so much publicity, I would have done it a lot better. That doesn't have anything to do with what was happening that day.
you didn't just tell her that you banged your car. You said you purposefully and carefully rammed your car into his front door to make a point, correct?
In 1989, I probably said that, yes.
And are you changing that now? Are you saying
No.
something different now?
Absolutely not.
And you did tell her that you were sorry you didn't do it better. If I'd known how much press attention I'd get for it.
Right, because you keep saying driving my car through his house and through his front door. That's a different visual from what actually happened. If everyone was going to blame me for driving my car through his house, I should have probably driven my car through his house.
Is that what you were thinking? You were sorry you didn't do it better? You wanted to drive the car through it more?
It was
Is that
a
what you're
joke.
saying?
It was a joke that if it was, when it happened back then, there was nothing that had gone since then.
Did you consider what you did to the door that day and driving your car through his front door? Did you consider that a joke?
Your Honor, objection, argument that the front door is there, nothing's driven through the front door.
I said through the front door, driving it into the front door. Did you consider that a joke?
I didn't consider him stealing the house from me and refusing to deal with me a joke either. I thought nothing was funny.
My question was, did you consider
No.
your conduct?
She
a joke?
answered that no.
That's not a
On to something-
joke.
Just a minute. You answered that no already. Go ahead. On to something else.
And you knew at the time when you were describing it that you scared Dan Broderick too, when you did it. That was the point, right?
I was madder than heck at him, and I did it on purpose.
And your words were that you scared the shit out of him, right?
I don't know. I don't know if that's what I said. I don't know that I'm sure he was alarmed, but I have never heard directly from him.
We're looking at what you have called your book on page 68. Did you not say, I scared the shit out of him?
And he came out of the house and started beating me up. That's what it says there.
Did you say I scared the shit out of him?
And there I did, yes. But I didn't know then that fact.
But you didn't know then that fact?
When it happened in 1986, the book is in 88 later.
And you have lied to people about this incident since it happened, correct?
The Michael Campbell thing,
For example, to Michael Campbell, you denied that you did that to Michael Campbell.
I purposely did not want to discuss this with Michael Campbell in 1989, I believe, because Linda Kolkena had no business calling a place of work of mine and telling him things that went on years ago. And she told him that I was going to burn his office down and that I was a violent person and I was going to kill him and that I had this machine gun. And I was like, I said, oh, I thought.
You're saying that Linda Kolkena said those things to Michael Campbell?
I think
That
that's
you had a machine gun and you were going to burn his office down?
She told him I was going to burn his office down, that I wanted to see her wedding pictures, that I had a machine gun and I was going to kill everyone at her wedding. And I think those are like the three things, none of which were true.
The fact of the matter is that Michael Campbell asked you if you had driven your car into
Right.
Dan Broderick's door, and you lied.
I didn't discuss it with him.
You said
don't-
no. You didn't just discuss it with him. You said, no, Dan and Linda are making that up. They've been making these things up about me all along. Didn't you say that to Michael
I
Campbell?
can't remember exactly what I said, but I said I thought that this would stop when they got married, but obviously it hasn't stopped, and she's been calling and people and telling stories on me all over town, and I thought it would stop. And I did deny that those things had happened because I didn't want to bring up the past. I was trying to get a new life going.
And this was an example, though, of what you were telling him was a lie of Linda Kolkena. So she was making this up.
That she was spreading lies about me, right? Because she mainly called about me seeing her wedding pictures, and that was a total lie.
When you
She was not trying to get a new life going. If she was trying to get a new life going, she would have just gotten a new life going. She had things she could have fallen back on. She got $190,000. Sell your house, Betty, and go live something a little smaller, a little more manageable. Stop going to Nordstrom's. Stop going to Saks. Stop going to all the places that you were going. Thousands of dollars a month. Driving me crazy. There's all kinds of things she could have done. And I don't know about Linda Cocaine. Yes, Church Lady is cute, Puddletown.
went to Claremont Hospital after this incident, you did refuse any kind of treatment from anyone there, correct?
I think so.
You refused any type of socialization with anyone. You made, quote, no effort to deal with what was going on, unquote. Is that correct?
If that's what their report says, I'm sure it's true.
And it is true that you did know that you could get out earlier, that you were given the opportunity to sign papers to leave.
No, that's not true. I thought I was put there for a 72-hour hold. That's all I knew. And when it was time to check out, they wanted me to sign papers to voluntarily commit myself for longer treatment, and I just laughed at them and left. But I had no idea I could get out earlier. If I had, I would have.
Can you explain why the report would say she refused to sign herself
Your
in?
Honor, I object. Proper.
And
Would it refresh your recollection to look at the report that was written?
Nope. Sorry. StreamYard became unresponsive for a second there, so I don't know what happened. It's not going to refresh her memory.
She
I
refused
guarantee
to.
it.
Oh,
Excuse me.
and that says exactly what I just said. That I refused to sign myself into the hospital, and I
And
preferred to
refused
leave
to-
at the expiration of her 72-hour hold.
Refused to sign herself into the hospital and refused to leave the hospital.
I
Preferred
was
to.
never given a choice to leave the hospital. Was on a 72-hour hold.
Do you recall giving papers to sign to release you from a 17-hour hold and tearing them up?
No. I told you Adam about not signing any papers. I wouldn't sign any papers, signing me in or out or anything.
Requested papers to
Sign
release from
papers.
72-hour hold?
And transfer to voluntary status. I would not voluntarily commit myself. That was the only offer they gave me, was to voluntarily commit myself when the 72 hours was up. And I said, no way. And I just left.
You have acknowledged that you did use vulgar language in front of your children, correct?
Yes, later on in this whole thing, yes. In 83, 84, 85, I don't think so.
You used.
Towards
very-
86, I was getting a little hot. And in 87, I was ranting,
In
yes.
85, 86, 87, 88, and 89, you were using vulgar language, you were using sexually explicit language to your children, correct?
Well, if you, the same names over and over. Was,
When you separated in 1985, how old was Rhett?
Rhett was born in 79.
He was 6 years old.
Right.
And you even had Rhett call up his dad once and ask him if he had to pay Linda to sleep with him.
No, Rhett did that. I know Rhett did that, but I didn't have Rhett do that.
A little 6-year-old boy did that all on his own.
Rhett is extremely vocal and extremely angry at a lot of people for what went on here. And he did horrible things like that, and he did it on purpose.
In 1986.
I don't know why he did it, but I know he did it. And we have other tapes of him just making a tape that was not on a phone machine with very hateful and explicitly horrible things in it that he wanted to tell his father.
When we'll talk about that in just a second. You indicated that you didn't think that there was anything wrong at all with the language that you were using in front of the children. You didn't think there was anything wrong with calling their father or calling Linda. You didn't think there was anything wrong with that, right?
Now we get
So I
censored.
had a change of heart there where I swallowed everything and didn't tell them anything that was going on in 83 and 84 and into 85. They never heard from me about the affair. They never heard Linda's name. They didn't know why I was crying and hysterical and shaking and upset and short-tempered with them. And then when Dan filed the papers and did all these horrible things, I figured I'm telling them what went on here, and I did.
And you didn't think there was anything wrong with that. In fact, you said,
I think I
As
did
long
them
as-
more harm by covering up, not exactly lying to them, but I covered up and I harmed them and myself. And from now on, I was just telling them exactly the truth.
well, you thought it was funny though. You thought it was funny not only to call Linda, but to have the boys call her too. Did you laugh about that
There
with
were-
Jeanette DeWise?
They're
There
saying
were
the
times
C
that we
word, I
thought it was
believe.
funny, but those were the two names that I just used for them all the time over the years. So it wasn't funny and it wasn't meaningful either.
You said before that you thought it was just water off the duck's back. No big deal that you talked like that to your children.
That's what I mean. Over the years, it had no effect on anyone of any kind.
Isn't it true that every single person who knew you and who knew what was going on told you it was having a tremendous effect on these children?
Like who? No.
Like
Who?
all of your friends, like all of the psychotherapists? Wasn't Gail Forbes telling you how horrible it was that you were demeaning their father like that?
I don't know if she said that. I'm sure she thought I was demeaning their father like that.
Wasn't Patty Monahan? Wasn't Helen Picard? Wasn't every friend that you had? Wasn't Brian Forbes asking you to please not use that language anymore?
I find this so ironic. It's not even funny. The Forbeses are the filthiest mouthed people that have ever walked the earth in front of their children on a daily basis, both of them. And the fact that they are coming in this courtroom and pretending that I'm using bad words is perverted.
Well, I
It's
don't
weird.
think anyone's pretending that you were using bad words, Mrs. Broderick, but that's a given, right? I mean, you're
Bad
admitting.
words that I called Dan and Linda all
Well,
the time.
there was quite a bit
Yes.
more than that, though, wasn't there? You didn't just call him those words. It was how you used the words. It was how you used the words to destroy the children's self-esteem.
The children's self-esteem?
Yes.
I'm not with you on this. What are you talking about?
How about when Danny asked you what the name Broderick meant, when he was doing a project for school and had to talk about what his last name meant, and you told him that it meant, and when he told you, Mom, come on, be serious, I have to do a project for school, you told him it means goddamn. Do you think that has anything to do with a young boy's self-esteem about his own name?
I don't recall this at all.
It's argumentative, sustained.
Did you think it was a good idea to encourage the children to hate their father?
At which point?
At any point.
Yes, I thought he was being cruel and vicious and horrible to them. And I thought he was destroying their self-esteem on a daily basis. He never showed any affection. He was not at all positive with them about anything, and he actively neglected them, all areas of their life. And I didn't think they should be living with him.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why they started doing that now. We heard it. I heard it on the phone conversation.
Assuming that you believe that, did you still think that it was appropriate to talk to the children and to say things to them like their father is a cold-hearted bastard?
Your Honor, I have an objection. This is irrelevant.
Not sustained.
It's irrelevant?
Well, you're assuming facts, not evidence. I haven't heard any testimony like that.
Did you ever tell Rhett that his father was a cold-hearted bastard?
I know that's exactly how I felt at certain times. You know,
The question is, did you ever tell Rhett that?
Did the judge forget about the phone conversation? We heard for 45 minutes her son begging her to stop saying bad words and her just rolling them out. She did not care. He was crying because he couldn't see her until she shut her mouth. Did you forget that, Judge? Come on. That was horrible to listen to.
don't recall specifically telling Rhett that, but it's very likely that I did, yes.
Did you tell him he didn't belong in the slums with?
Yes, probably.
Did
I
you
didn't
tell
think he
him?
did.
You tell him that you don't have anyone that loves you or cares you over there, cares about you over there?
He didn't. He was being horribly neglected by those babysitters and by Dan and Linda. He was being left alone. He was running away. He was suicidal. He was
Did
depressed.
you think that that made Brett feel better for you to keep telling him how horribly he was being treated?
Your Honor, objection, it's irrelevant.
Rhett knew how
That's
horribly.
relevant. You can answer that. Overruled.
Rhett knew how horribly he was being treated, and he wanted to live with me, and he was running away all the time. He knew it. I didn't have to tell him.
Did you think that it was appropriate to tell his father that he was an asshole? Tell his father to drop dead?
About particular things at certain times, I probably said those things. I did think Dan was all those things.
Did you tell him to fight his father and beat up his dad?
No, I wouldn't have ever told the boys to beat up their dad. That wouldn't have.
You would have
Made
never
any
told him to
sense.
go fight and beat up their dad.
That wouldn't have made any sense. I don't remember saying anything like that. No, I wouldn't have told two little boys to beat up their dad.
Well, you said that this conversation that you had with Danny, that we've heard the tape of, that was an aberration. Isn't it true? You had conversations like that with other conversations like that with Danny. You had conversations like that with Brett.
In 1987, we had a lot of horrible conversations. It was a very bad time for all of us. I was completely falling apart. I couldn't get any satisfaction in the courts. We are now into 87, going into 88.
And so, assuming that
I was freaking out.
you wanted to vent those kinds of feelings, did you think it was appropriate to vent them like that with your children?
Your Honor, objection. This is not, there's no charges that the district attorney is going into. I object, it's irrelevant.
You put the relationship with the children an issue here, so I think it is relevant. Overruled, you can answer that. Do you think it was appropriate or not? Just yes or no.
Not particularly appropriate to vent them with the children, but I think it was more appropriate that the children knew what was going on and why.
And knew, for example, like you said, that as long as someone is, it's okay to call them.
That's right.
And when Rhett would cry when you were in the middle of a conversation like that, you just hung up on him.
Well, I don't remember that. I mean, there were thousands and thousands of conversations, morning, noon, and night. Most of them very friendly and very good, about nothing to do with foul language or anybody's problems.
Well, it is true that besides, well, let's go back to your comment about the Forbes. didn't you have a conversation in front of Brian Forbes where you were talking like that in front of his children, and he asked you to please stop it because you were using inappropriate language in front of his children?
No,
That never occurred.
no. And Brian Forbes uses worse language all the time.
I'm not talking about Brian Forbes and what language he uses.
No, he knows.
Did you ever
Because
use
it would have been,
language like
it would have been
that?
very funny if Brian Forbes had said something like that to me. I would have just laughed right in his face. It never happened.
And you're saying that Brian Forbes said these kinds of things in front of his children?
Yes.
Isn't it true that your children themselves asked you repeatedly to stop using that kind of language?
My children didn't much care. They were instructed by Dan Broderick to tell me to stop
Did
calling
it
him
sound
names.
to you like Danny didn't much care in that conversation about the language you were using?
It sounded to me that he was instructed by Dan to order me to stop using the language, and then I could see the kids.
Did you tell Danny that you were too embarrassed to tell anyone you knew him?
Yes.
And you don't think that that had anything to do with harming his self-esteem?
I remember that day because I remember the really traumatic things. And the kids were not dressed properly. They were not acting properly. They were fighting. They were running around being wild. And I was like, you just are not the children that I used to know. You're not the children that I raised. I don't
But
even want to
listen-
know you people.
When you said that you were too embarrassed to even tell anyone you knew him, and when he asked you why, you said because Daddy's in his office is very embarrassing.
I don't know that those things went together at all. I remember.
Are you denying that? Let me
No.
ask you whether this conversation occurred. Well, I'm not really even interested in seeing you guys or having anything to do with that family until you get your act together. Danny didn't respond. I'm too embarrassed to even tell anyone I know you guys. He responded, why? It's not our fault. Your answer, because Daddy in his office is very embarrassing. Why? Why are you embarrassed to tell them you even know us?
Your Honor, I'm going to have an objection to this.
Sustained. It's the way you do it, as well. If you wanted to read that and ask if that conversation took place, go ahead.
Your Honor, and if I may have a continuing objection, I'm just not aware of 100% of the count in this case.
I'm not talking about it.
We're not talking percent. I understand what we're doing. The issue of custody of the kids is proper cross-examination. Go ahead.
Did you tell Danny, you obviously approve, you're living over there.
I remember the part of the conversation that you first started. I remember that part, that I was very upset that they weren't the children that I had raised. If this is the same conversation, can I look at it?
Yes.
Maybe she'll remember this one.
The conversation I'm talking about happened in my car with Danny, so this is a different conversation.
Never
Is
mind.
this with Danny, do you know?
Yes, that's with Dan.
Yes, I said these things. October 27th, 87.
And Danny was also very, very despondent during that conversation when you were telling him about how embarrassed you were to know him, correct?
I don't remember particularly that conversation. Danny was also threatening to run away and commit suicide.
And did that have anything to do with the fact that you were telling him to do things like pour boiling hot water on Linda's?
No, none of those things ever happened, that little group you're working on there.
Did it have anything to do with
Nobody.
telling him that they had to do bad and mean and cruel and vicious and violent things to Linda before they could come visit you?
No, I told them they did not have to do what she told them. She was only a live-in office girl at the time. She was not engaged or married or anything, and she had no right bossing my kids around, making them cry. And they called her a bitch. They didn't like her. They hated her. And I said, you don't have to do what she says. She does not have to order you around.
When Danny was going to see Ruth Roth, was he telling Ruth Roth about the things that you were telling him to do to Linda?
I don't know.
Well, Brandon, if you'd been here earlier, you would have. Carmen told on me and said I was going to rename my YouTube channel Boats and Hoes, but I don't have any boats. So the pirate's got to come in somewhere. Or whatever you said. How much for a I don't know. I haven't got that far yet. How much more do we have of this? Oh my goodness, we're almost done. I can't do this. This. I mean, we're almost done for tonight.
Well, that Easter that you talked about on Easter where a visitation was canceled at the last minute. It wasn't canceled by Dan Broderick, was it? It was canceled by Ruth Roth, who was seeing Danny at the time,
No
correct?
objection, I call for conclusion.
Sustained.
Were you advised that it was canceled by Ruth Roth?
Your Honor, objection, I call for recess.
No, overruled on that ground. Were you advised of that?
No, what I knew is when I arrived at
That's
school,
enough. You answered the question.
Isn't it true that Tricia Smith had called you before you even went to school and told you that Ruth Roth had advised against the visitation?
I don't remember if Tricia called me, but when I got to school and Dan was pulling away, Dan told the children that I changed my mind. He didn't mention Ruth Roth.
How do you know what Dan told the children?
Because they called and told me. And Dan said that I changed my mind about that week. And I said, I didn't change my mind.
Before you went to pick them up, though, hadn't you been advised by Tricia Smith that Ruth Roth was the one that was calling off the visitation?
I don't remember. I just went to pick the kids up like I was supposed to pick them up. And I don't remember. All I know is Dan told the kids that I changed my mind and that was wrong. I did not change my mind. And the boys were very crying and upset that I changed my mind and I didn't.
You were aware at some point that it was Ruth Roth
Yes, later.
who canceled that visitation. It was not Dan. And it was based on what she was hearing from Danny at the time.
No, I'm going to object. It calls for assumes facts, not evidence.
Well, it's sustained on the basis been asked and answered. She said she doesn't recall Tricia Smith telling her that.
No, I'm asking about at any point after the fact, you became aware that it was Ruth Roth,
Your Honor,
not Dan Broderick that canceled it.
Okay,
Your
well,
Honor, I object. It assumes facts, not evidence.
No, overruled. Did you ever become aware of that? Just yes or no?
Ruth Roth was
Just
not.
yes or no, Mrs.
What's the
Broderick?
question again?
Did you ever become aware that it was Ruth Roth who canceled the visitation and not Dan Broderick?
Ruth Roth could not cancel my visitation. Dan had to cancel it. It was
Did
her
you become
recommendation.
aware that Ruth Roth was the one that recommended that it be canceled?
Much later, but to me, it was Dan that did it. Because ultimately, it was always Dan.
You did, you've acknowledged leaving some messages on the phone answering machine at Dan Broderick's house.
Thousands and thousands.
And you did it intentionally to harass him.
Not the thousands and thousands of messages. No, some of them.
Well, let's, for example,
Oh no, here again. All you know about clean anyway, the mere existence is a filthy statement on human life. You're like the scum of the earth. People like you are not new, you know. They've been around since the beginning of the same old story. Yeah. I wonder when my kids are coming home. Oh well. Call back later, I guess, just to harass you.
For the record, what exhibit was that you played from?
good question.
It's your record.
People's 55, yeah.
Thank you.
Obviously, you left that message just to harass Dan and Linda, correct?
No, incorrect. That was a call to my children. They were not home. I surmised they were not home, and I reached Linda, the office girl's name on the machine, which shouldn't have been there. It was a call to my kids. But I knew if the kids weren't there and I kept calling back, it would harass him that I was calling. I wasn't calling to harass him.
Well, okay, you said there at the end, I'll call back later just to harass you.
Well, I
Didn't
called
say-
back to reach the kids, but I knew if I had to call a few times before the kids got there, that it would be bothersome to him. But how would I know when the kids would be there?
I'm having so much fun. I love this machine. You suckers, you. Anyway, you remember how your favorite case was going to court, the guy who went to court to prove the other guy was an asshole and he won? I want to go to court to prove you're and I'll win. I love it. This is going to be so much fun.
Now, that was a call that was intended to harass them, correct?
I never picked up the phone to call Dan Broderick to harass him. I called to reach my children. If I got the machine, I would be mad and harassed, and I would say ugly things to him.
You said this is so much fun. You were having fun?
Leaving
Obviously, I
those
wasn't
messages?
having fun, but I knew that he would take the messages and tape them and use them against me because that's what he was doing.
You knew that these messages were harassing, correct? You knew that it was harassing.
I didn't call to harass, but when I got the machine, I was very angry, and I felt harassed first because I was interrupted in reaching my children, and out of frustration, I would say ugly things that ended up harassing him. But I had much more important things to do than to pick up the phone and bother harassing him.
You just said it again. I never picked up the phone to call Dan Broderick. I only called to talk to my children.
If I got the machine, I talked to Dan.
This is a message to. You have one hell of a nerve dumping the kids here on the sidewalk and zooming away without making any attempt to communicate with me about my plans for the weekend. Make me sick, the both of you. I have a good mind to dump the kids back on yours and drive away. Call me, we have a lot to talk about, asshole. And come pick up your 4 children that you're working so hard to have custody of. Congratulations, you can have them.
You obviously were not calling Dan Broderick or Dan Broderick's house to get in touch with the children on that phone call, were you?
The children were at my house.
So you did not just pick up the phone to call the children. You were picking up the phone to call and leave a message with Dan Broderick, weren't you?
I wasn't calling to harass him. I had real, hardcore, tangible business to take care of with that. It wasn't a
Mrs.
harass
Broderick,
call.
You said, I never picked up the phone to call
To
Dan.
harass
That's
Dan.
not true.
Oh,
Is
sorry.
it?
I meant I never picked up a phone call to harass Dan Broderick. That is a phone call that I needed to talk to Dan Broderick. I didn't pick up the phone to harass Dan Broderick. I called to reach
I
him.
want to get rid of them, but I don't like driving to your.
Owie.
Come get them.
That again was not a phone conversation or a message that you left that had anything to do with the kids, did it? You
They're
picked up the
within-
phone to call Dan.
Within moments of one another on the same day, on the same weekend where I was supposed to go to work and I was half dressed and the 4 kids are on my front lawn and Dan went with Linda to the Ritz-Carlton, but we didn't know that. So
Did
he
you-
wasn't home
Did you pick up the phone to call Dan?
to call Dan, not to harass Dan, to call Dan, to get in touch with him.
Come get the kids. Stop long enough to return my call. I left messages on the machine with the maid, with the secretary, etc., etc. I have very important things to ask you. You're making me mad. I'll kill you.
Now, that message had nothing to do with the kids, and it had nothing to do with the kids being at your house, did it? You were calling him, you said, stop long enough to return my messages. I have very important
Right.
things to talk to you. You were calling specifically to talk to Dan Broderick, weren't you?
Right, not to harass him. I had to reach him about specific things.
You
And I
knew-
couldn't reach him at the office and I couldn't reach him somewhere else, or he wouldn't return my calls. So I called, I guess that's that machine.
You knew that saying things like stop was harassing. You knew that that made Dan Broderick angry. You knew that it was inappropriate.
This is, I don't know when it is, in late 87, but I hardly cared what made Dan Broderick angry at that point.
Did you think, when you left the message, stop long enough to return my calls, did you think that somebody who heard that would be real inclined to want to return your calls?
I wasn't real inclined to talk to him either in late 87, but I was
Was that
having problems
designed to
with my
get him-
house payment, the insurance, and things that I had no control over because they were in his
Excuse me, Your
name.
Honor, may I
Just,
have the witness instructed to please respond to my question?
just go ahead.
Did you think that when you left that message, stop long enough to return my calls, that that was going to make him inclined to want to return your calls?
I wasn't
Yes or
inclined to
no?
want to talk to him either, no.
Well, you called and left the message.
I didn't want to
You
have
wanted-
anything to do with Dan Broderick in 1987. I didn't want to talk to him either. He had me between a rock and a hard place, and he knew it, and I had to deal with him on certain things because he made it that way, and then he refused to deal with me. And then I'd
Did
get
you leave that
hysterical.
message, Mrs. Broderick, yes or no?
Yes,
And did you say stop long enough to return my messages, yes or no?
yes,
And did you think that he was going to be inclined to want to call you back when you left that message,
No.
yes or no?
No.
I have the day off and I would really like to use the boat, my boat. How do I get the keys? Where are the keys? Will you make another set and deliver them over here so that when I want to use the boat, I can use it? Thanks, sweetie.
Did that conversation or that message have anything to do with the children or getting in touch with the children? Yes or no?
I would have only used the boat with the children, but not particularly on that phone message.
Your Honor, may I have marked as another tape? People's Exhibit next to order.
84.
Then he told me you're afraid of me. You better damn well be afraid of me and keep going like this. Gonna pay this insurance bill now, or you're gonna be damn afraid of me.
Did that message have anything to do with talking to the children or wanting to talk to the children?
No, it had to do with desperation having to deal with him.
You didn't have any problems, obviously, asserting yourself when you were angry about something. You called him up and you demanded that he did something, or you were going to do something to him, correct?
He never did anything that I demanded. It was just empty threats.
Oh, really? You might beg to differ now.
You had specifically been advised, whether you agreed with it or not, by the judge when you went through the contempt hearings, that that conduct was harassing. Using that language was harassing, correct?
Yes, and I disagree.
In fact, the judge had talked to you about the fact that not only was it harassing and disturbing the peace of everyone in the household, but that it was obviously not good for the children to be exposed to those kinds of characterizations, correct?
I don't know if that's what the judge said, but I consider the phone answering machine and leaving me cut out of everything with no recourse was annoying, harassing, and bothering me. More than me yelling back at him was annoying, harassing, and bothering him.
It was explained to you, though, in no uncertain terms by the judge, who said directly to you, Mrs. Broderick, who is an obviously intelligent person and who, so far as I know, functions mentally in the way that other people do.
Your Honor, I'm going to object.
Sustained.
He told you that you were clearly engaged in a pattern of conduct that was harassing and that it had to stop, correct?
And I told that judge he could sentence me to 21 years in jail and I would not stop trying to get in touch with my children, that he had
And
no
there
right to
was
cut me off from my children.
Nothing that you were ever held in contempt for trying to get in touch with your children. It
Wrong.
was for using the language that you used, correct?
It was for using the language that I used when I hit the machines that were put there for the sole and explicit purpose of keeping me from my children, which drove me crazy, guaranteed every time.
And if you knew that it was going to drive you crazy, guaranteed every time, you obviously had the ability to recognize it was going to be there and to not use that language, correct? But you did it anyway.
I wanted to get in touch with my children. I was not putting up with that.
Well, we've just listened to several messages where it's clear you didn't want to get in touch with your children. You wanted to get in touch with Dan Broderick. You wanted to make demands, and you used that kind of language.
But
And
those
you weren't out of control in those messages, were you?
I was pretty upset in those messages.
You also left those messages when it was clear that Linda Kolkena's voice was not on the machine, didn't you?
No.
Did you not leave a message on June 21st, 1987, where it starts off, "My God, did you say Kathy Lee? I'm so glad that you're using that name. It's cute." Anyway, this is a message for she's such a, well, that's the only word I can think of. There's nothing lower. It's clear that it was Kathy Lee's voice that was on the machine when you made that message, correct?
Sounds like it's that one.
So it didn't have anything to do with Linda's voice being on the machine that made you leave that kind of a message, did it?
What kind of a message? What's the rest of that message? Is that a message
This
to
is
leave?
a message for the,
And that's the end of it?
my God, did you say Kathy Lee? I'm so glad you're using that name. It's cute. Anyway, this is a message for that she has the nerve to eat off of, well, it's bad enough she's my husband, that eating off my wedding china. She's such a, well, that's the only word I can think of. There's nothing lower. that have anything to do with talking to Kathy Lee?
No.
But this is Mommy. I'm out of the shower now. Where are you? You can make a choice today about staying with me or staying with the sucker.
That was a message that you left the very first thing in the morning when you called Rhett that morning, correct?
I don't know if it's the first thing in the morning.
Well, it's obviously you're talking about what he's going to do for the day. You just got out of the shower. You have a choice of what you can do today. It didn't have anything to do with calling and not getting through. It was the first call of the morning, and that's what you left.
I have no idea. No, that call is a result of something that came right before it. I don't know what it is unless there's another message before it or something.
It's the prosecutor, Gabby. She's putting pages back in her binder as she finishes.
Excuse me so much.
She's got a long way to
I don't
go.
want to talk to you. Your voice on the machine makes me puke, but it's a little better than the
You disgust me so much I don't even want to talk to you. Your voice on the machine makes me want to puke, but it's a little better than the. Obviously, you're not leaving that message because Linda's voice is on the machine. It's clear that Linda's voice is no longer on the machine, and you're still leaving those messages, correct?
I think that would have been Dan's voice then.
Okay. So when it was Dan's voice on the machine, you were just as angry and left the same messages, correct?
Once again, you're doing a wonderful job of reminding me of the sequence of things
Mrs.
and how
Broderick, if
these
you could
things
just
happen.
answer my question. You left those messages when it was clear that it was Dan's voice on the machine, not Linda. Yes or no?
That particular message sounds like that, yes.
You left the same sorts of messages at Dan Broderick's office when you called his office and talked to the receptionist. You referred to Linda as the, did you not?
Maybe once.
Stop. Don't do it. Don't do it. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I mean, I was, but I wasn't. That was so frustrating. So I found something by accident because I was looking for something else. So apparently Betty put a book out in December of 2023. I don't have anything to spill about trolls because they're just, I don't care about what happened the other day. Like, I really don't care about that. But when I saw this book that Betty put out in 2023, one, I was shocked that she put a book out in 2023. But it's in a weird, I haven't even listened to it because it's in an AI voice, and no thanks. But I started reading the comments on the book. And no, she did not mention my name. Oh, Shani, it wasn't any big deal. Just somebody came in. She'd been in for a couple days. I kind of expected she was gonna. I was on the fence on whether she was gonna be like a troll or not. I actually was trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. I agreed with her on she left would leave comments at the end of the stream. I actually agreed with her. So I don't know what she got so mad about. And then she said I was grifting off of Betty, which I'm like, I'm the worst grifter ever. One, Betty grifts herself. Oh yeah, and then she said I was worse than Dan. I was like, I'm still breathing. Oh, also, I was like, and I've managed to hang on to my husband for over 30 years. So I'm better than both of them. Oh, no, it wasn't. I was going to actually try to have a conversation with her because I was really curious on what she thought Betty should have done. But Flashman and Gabby jumped on her before I knew they did, and she was gone. So it's whatever. So I was reading these comments. If you read the summary of Betty's book, Telling on Myself is the title of it. It's 5 hours and 40 minutes of the audiobook. that I'm not going to listen to. But the summary says, what do you do when you have struggled loyally for years beside your husband, living in financial hardships as you bring up your joint children virtually as a single mother, working towards the good times that you can see coming for all of you, only to discover that your husband is committing adultery and is planning to leave you? Worse, he aggressively denies his affair, denouncing you as crazy to your face and to everyone you know, while he schemes to walk off with everything you have worked so hard for, as he is reborn into a new life with a star-struck younger woman as pretty as you once were, who will enjoy everything you've invested in your financial security, your home life, and even your children. Worse still, he is a notoriously hardball lawyer with every intention of crushing you in any way he can, of erasing you from his life, of reducing you to nothing so that he can move on as if you never existed. Daniel T. Broderick III's relentless harassment of his discarded wife, Betty, made her increasingly crazy as he and his girlfriend, then second wife, Linda Kolkena Broderick, piled on the pressure. Until one day, on November 5th, 1989, at her wit's end and believing herself to be acting in self-defense, she confronted them in the early hours of the morning, and in a panic, put rounds in them, making them both unalived. Sorry. A multitude of onlookers has absolved Betty for what she did. Many even admire her, especially if they have suffered similar fate to hers. One juror at her trial openly questioned why she had taken so long to unalive Dan under such extreme provocation. Now 25 years into a 32-year to life prison sentence for her second-degree unaliver of Dan and Linda, Betty has reluctantly decided to give her personal account of what led up to that fatal and fateful day when all three of their futures came violently and abruptly to an end. Yep. Self-defense of what? They were sleeping. Yeah, she didn't. She confronted them. I was like, that's putting it in a way I would have never thought to. Like, they were sleeping. I don't know how you confront sleeping people. But when you go, so this has a 4.6 out of 5 stars. Who admired her, Amber Heard. You've got, I really enjoyed the story, love the background point of view, blah, blah, blah. Great. It's good to hear Betty's perspective. It's really a matter of having to walk a mile in her shoes. Great. Give you that. But then there's people that are asking why it took her so long and said that it wouldn't have taken them nearly as long. And I'm just sitting here going, how many people out there are just okay with the fact that she took 2 people's lives, like, because they made her life not what it was, because they were all horrible to each other, because of all these dumb things that if they just would have just moved on, they could have figured it out. But they couldn't get out of their own ways. And she definitely didn't get out of her own way. But they're just like, it's okay. It just floored me that there's still people that are out there thinking that. Thank you, Gabby, for the $5 high five super sticker. I appreciate it. I agree, Piltowns. There is no excuse to take 2 lives. And I Shani, I thought about you because when this started, you were on a completely different side of this, and you were defending Betty. But as you've watched the trial go, you've come to a different side because you've seen the evidence. And I'm just sitting here going like, this is crazy to me that that should just never be a thought. I get it. We all get so mad, like, oh, I could just unalive them. And that's exactly how we say it in real life. But we don't. We just get mad. It's just, we just talk about it. But reading through these comments, I did find people that listened to this book that have watched the trial had a completely different perspective on it. They said Betty left a ton of stuff out. Only, it was the victim mentality that we've seen throughout this whole thing, and put all that stuff in there, but left out a lot of the stuff that they saw in the trial. And so their minds were not swayed. They thought that this was crazy and ridiculous. And so I'm thinking the people that maybe haven't watched the trial and have only watched the Oprah interviews, I watched all the Oprah interviews too, are the ones that maybe are just going, yeah, Betty was so wrong in all of this. I'm like, she was just the most wrong. That's what I have said all along. She was just the most wrong. And it's like, what are you people thinking? Oh, sorry, you didn't defend, you just disagreed. So, all right, Shani says, oh, I just remembered back in the day, I agreed with her handling of it. I don't defend, I disagreed, or I'd have completed your task. I'm glad you did not complete your task. However, listening, I have learned a crap load of her BS. And I'm glad, Shani. Because it's all, there's just, we can't hear Dan Linda's side. We'll never hear Dan and Linda's side. They had one. Each of them did. I'm sure they could have just blamed Betty for just as much as she's blaming them for. I'm sure they just had their own stories to tell, right? We all do. But we don't get to hear theirs. We don't know. Yeah, writing a book in 2023, Betty's still in denial. Wonder why you didn't get paroled. I don't know that she's getting anything out of it. I have no idea. Yeah. I'm wondering about that juror that supposedly said that, why'd you take so long? If you thought that, why did you find her guilty? Yes. Women, stop blaming the other woman. Absolutely. It's the same thing with men. If you walk in and your significant other is in bed with somebody else, why are you beating up the person they're in bed with? Maybe they didn't know. Like, well, one, don't beat up anybody, but two, get the guilty party there. It's not the other. Sorry, dog's barking. I thought you can't hear that. Yes, the man is married and should not be looking. Also, who doesn't deny, like, not that I know this. I was going to say, who doesn't deny having an affair? That sounds really bad. But when people are confronted with, when they get caught having an affair, their typical response is, no, I'm not. Yes. Let me put this so I don't get in trouble. Putting rounds into people while they sleep is just a wee bit wrong. Just a wee bit. Puts you up there with Austrian painters, and Italian newspaper reporters. I don't get that last part. Sorry. Yeah, Shani, your story is interesting. Your guy was hands-on, and well, you took until one day you almost dropped your baby. That was the end. And when I almost finished him, after him stalking me, and I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't. My understanding was the first jury deadlocked just of her degree of guilt, not whether she was guilty, not hung on innocence or guilt, just her degree of guilt. Yes, just kick her out, kick him out, whatever. Oh, painters. Mussolini was a reporter at one time. Ooh. They might, but give them the benefit of the doubt. People lie all the time. I mean, I have been sitting, I was laughing because I was reading these comments and I'm just like thinking about this trial. And it's like, I wanted to watch this trial with you guys because this was the first trial I watched. It was crazy. It had everything. I had no ulterior motives around it. I just wanted to watch this trial with you guys. So I don't care what people think, if I'm grifting this, that, or the other. Don't care. I don't grift well. So if I'm making progress, good for me. But so I thought about that. And then I thought about like the times where I'll be out. Like I remember one time I was out with my husband and our son, and I wasn't sitting by my husband. Our son was sitting in between us, and we were sitting at the bar. Obviously, my son was over 21. So my son and I were talking, and my husband was talking, I think, to the bartender. And this woman comes up, and she just starts talking to my husband. Did not care that he was wearing a wedding ring. did not have a care in the world. And my son and I, we just keep talking, but we're kind of watching what's happening. And I was just kind of like, are you kidding me right now? And also, I don't know what was said, but he's like, yeah, my wife's like right there. She turned around, had the most horrified look on her face. And I was like, hello. And goodbye. I was like, what the heck are you doing? But it was so funny because I've had other women be like, they'll come up and just start talking to him. And they'll look at me and they'll be like, are you okay that I'm talking to him? Like, yeah, I'm fine with it. Because at the end of the night, he's going home with me. I'm not worried about it. You do whatever you think you're going to do. Like, I'm going to be right here and have at it. Like, he's leaving with me. So it's fine. But people don't care. So, yeah, they probably do know they're married. I think there's attraction trying to get a married person. I don't know. I can find garden implements everywhere. Yeah, I got cornfields all around me. Just saying. I won't drop kick people because I don't know how. I have been talking about watching this for a long time because this is it's my first trial. You know, the first one. But so I don't know. Flashman, you always ask me if there's supporters out there for Betty. Yes. There is. Still. And I just have to wonder if they have watched the trial. Because we here Like, my whole purpose of my channel when I started it was to watch the trial as a juror, and that's it. We don't do deep dives into cases before. Yes, 81. We don't do deep dives into trial before we watch them. We just like jump in. Here's what it's about. Let's see what's happening. And we let the evidence take us where it goes. That's it. So I think all these other people have all this noise over here from the interviews and all the stuff that Betty did, because she was everywhere. Just whoever would listen to her, she was talking to you. And I think they're just not paying attention. Either one, they just don't want to watch a trial because they think they know Betty got screwed, for lack of a better word. Or two, maybe they just wouldn't be able to see the evidence for what it is. Because, yeah, Dan did deduct some money from her, but he also paid her $190,000 the following year. So, and he paid every payment on time. She went through all those deposits, and it's like, you had $190,000. Either your like he paid your mortgage, he paid your gas bill, he paid your charge cards, he paid your credit cards, he paid everything. And you're still talking about you can't make it. At some point, that's a you problem. Yeah, I go in. Yeah. I like that sometimes we get to hear the sidebars, and there are things we get to hear outside the presence of the jury. I do like those. Good attorney fight is good. Good, clean attorney fight. Yes, you would disagree with how she handled it. How she had gotten the raw end of the deal of a woman who supported Dan's dream and lost in court. This trial shows she was also the aggressor up to the end. Yep. Absolutely. Stalkers love Betty. Well, they better be careful because she'll stalk you right back. Also, she even said something about, her phone messages were threatening. And she even said something in her testimony tonight about a threat. I'm like, did you not hear that too, lawyer? Please. I don't know. How in the world can you come into contact with a Darrell Brooks supporter? That was all on video. You cannot deny that man's guilt. That's yikes. All right. Yes. Back then that put her in the top 1% for income for just sitting on her ass. Exactly. And she complained that she couldn't afford to live. I'm like, what are you paying for? He's paying for everything, and you're saying that he's not giving you money. She went month after month. Here's the check. Here's the deposit ticket. Here's the check. Here's where you deposit it. Like, she didn't like it. Betty did not like that. She unalived 2 people. That trumps any pain she may have endured. She chose to do that. Yep. She can no longer be a victim, but she is. It's like you took your kid's dad away, and in the process took their mom away. You took somebody's son away. You took somebody's daughter away. You took yourself away from your parents. Like, I don't know. I just don't get it. Oh, it's time for grandma's, isn't it? Yep, I'll wrap up. Yeah, he was not framed by anyone but himself. Whatever. She did choose to be selfish, and she did it quite well. I'll give her that one. All right, guys. Okay, Flashman, I will look at it probably tomorrow. Thanks for the welcome back. You guys were hilarious tonight. Puddle Towns, autocorrect for the win was amazing. I loved it. Thanks, Flashman. But I'm good. I promise. I think that just made me look at things a little differently when I came across that book. I was actually looking for a different book about Betty, but apparently it's not in print anymore. So I'll have to go to like an old fashioned bookstore, like Books a Million, book half price book, whatever that's called. I don't know. Anyway, I will be back tomorrow. It'll only be 6 or 6:30. I gotta see how long. I think we have like 2 hours and 20 minutes. So if I can start at 6 again, I'm going to, just to give us a little bit of a head start. So, thanks, Puddletown. Platonic like a brother. See you, Flashman. All right, so I will put the live up. And like I said, probably 6 o'clock. So enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm not going to redirect to Grandma's, just hanging on the down low. But if you want to go, I think she's doing Star Wars. Hey, Zach. Hello and goodbye. Hope you're doing well, Zach. Hope you're not flooded. But Grandma's doing Star Wars trivia, I think. I don't remember. Sorry. Zach's not going to say anything. All right, guys. I'll see you all later. And enjoy the rest of your evening.